have some late joiners. And as Graeme has just done, we are recording this so that we can send it round for you. We'd love to continue to see your faces on the screen, but obviously I know that some people don't like to have their video recorded, so feel free to turn your cameras off if you do feel that you don't want to be recorded today. And then we will be sharing this all round with you after the session, so that you can watch back and learn any more things. So if you do need to drop off or anything, do feel free. If you have any questions, you can pop them in the chat. We'll be monitoring that and able to flag it to Graeme, and he's more than happy to sort of answer questions as you go as well. But hopefully what he's got planned will have very sorry, I just got distracted by Jennifer's message. Have fun, Jennifer. What a nice thing to be doing of your evening, whilst also learning a bit more about Ready for Your Marathon Challenge. That's incredible. Let us know if you feel woozy. Feel free to pop off, but enjoy your biscuit afterwards as well. But yeah, if you do have any questions, pop them in the chat. Myself and Nicole will be looking after them, and Graeme will be going along as well. So yeah, Nicole, do you want to say hi as well?
Yeah, just hi, welcome everyone. It's lovely to see some faces and meet you all. Very exciting. But yeah, hope you enjoy the evening. As Becky said, just if you have any questions, either raise your hand or shout out to Graeme or Becky or I, or pop it in the chat and we'll try and pick them up as we go along. I think Becky and I are going to hang around at the end as well. So if there is anything that you want to save that's sort of fundraising or anti-Nolan specific, then yeah, as we said, we'll be here. So definitely an opportunity for you to get some sort of face-to-face time with us as well. But yeah, enjoy. I'll pass over to Graeme.
Cool. Thanks very much, guys. Guys, again, welcome. I think there might be one or two more people sort of due, so we'll give it a couple more minutes. What I'll do for the time being, though, is I'm going to share my screen quickly for a bit, and I'll give you the code for the Kahoot, so you can all put it in and get yourself signed up. For those of you who haven't done a Kahoot before, it's basically just a bit of fun. It was initially, I think, sort of really popularized for kids in lockdown, where you sort of had questions and you answered questions, you get points for answering question, and it's kind of been hijacked by businesses and sort of people like me that sort of to make webinars a little bit more interactive and engaging. It can be a bit of a snore fest if I just sort of give you bullet point after bullet point on a PowerPoint presentation. So this just makes it a little bit more fun, a little bit competitive as well. Although I must say, although there are podiums, there's first, second, and third, there are no prizes. It's just pride that you'll have, and bragging rights over your fellow anti-Nolan runners. So what it is, it's just what you'll see when we start the quiz. There's a few questions. The first couple don't have points, and then we get into the points. There are some obviously marathon related questions. Just want to know what you know about marathon training. Also try and dispel a few myths. But also, if you are top of the leaderboard and you think you're a marathon whiz, a bit of a marathon anorak, I will bring you crashing down to earth again with some quite ridiculous questions towards the end, which really level the leaderboard. So I'll look forward to seeing how you get on with those. So if you just put that code in, 4170087, and we'll start in, I don't know, a minute, 90 seconds or so, and we'll get going. I'd say it's not serious, it's just a bit of fun. Actually, what I can do is a bit of background music on the Kahoot. There we go. So guys, yeah, just to sort of extend about what to expect this evening, we're going to cover a little bit of everything. We'll go into, obviously we'll do the Kahoot, have a bit of fun doing that. Then we'll cover a little bit on training. I'm not going to do too much on training. I'm given that the stage of training we're at the moment, you'll all be following your training plans, and the last thing I want to do is come in and change things around or confuse matters. I just want to go over a few basic principles of training and make sure you're comfortable with the path that you're on. Then we're going to do some injury prevention stuff, and that's where you'll need your golf balls. And then we're going to do some nutrition at the end. The nutrition bit is quite difficult to present because often it's a lot of sort of factual stuff, and I don't want that to become a snore fest. So what I generally try and tend to do is just put it all out there rather than giving you slides. Just open it up to questions and interact. And it's why it's really good if you can have your camera on. It does make it a bit better. It's a little bit easier for me to interact with you. what has, as I was saying to Becky and Nicole before, what has happened before now is the lady had a camera on and started doing her toenails in front of the camera, using the camera to paint her toenails. I'm not joking. It was quite gross, really. But of course, I didn't want to highlight the fact. I didn't want to embarrass her, so I just sort of let her carry on. I'm still scarred for life on that. So anyway, so I'd appreciate it if you saved your nails for another time. If you do put your camera on, but hey, if you want to do it, then fine. It's up to you. So we'll give it another 30 seconds or so, guys, and then we'll crack on. We've got how many people in the quiz? 11 in at the moment. Hopefully, a few more will join. Cool, we'll give it a little bit more. So, as I said, guys, the main focus tonight is questions. I'd rather park all of the content I've got pre-prepared and just ask the questions that you've got. It's a really good opportunity to ask anything you want, anything that's on your mind. And honestly, as I said on the and on that link that you've seen, no question's a silly question. I haven't had one silly question yet this is marathon season. I've done a lot of webinars, so anything that's on your mind, any question, please feel free to ask, and hopefully I can help answer it. Right, okay, what's the time? I think at 6:10, I think we're good to go. We'll run out of time. So I'm going to start the quiz. If you are still downloading Kahoot or a bit late, you can still join. The pin will be down the bottom, so you can join whenever you like. You might not necessarily have the best chance to win, but as it's only a little bit of silly fun, it doesn't really matter. Right, here we go. We're going to start ultimately the webinar and the Kahoot. Right, okay, so welcome to this evening. As I said, I hope you all questions are welcome at any time. Just put your hand up, either in the video or by the emoji. That'd be cool. So guys, for those of you who don't know, it looks like a shameless plug, and you could argue it probably is. This is my book, Marathon Half Marathon Training Guide. I wrote this, well, the first edition, gosh, about over 12 years ago now, and the BBC newsreader, Sophie Rayworth, picked it up, followed the first edition, and it really got her started on her running journey, and she wanted to endorse the second edition. So Sophie endorsed the second edition of this book, which is still available on Amazon, but to be honest, it's much cheaper on eBay, I think, secondhand and dog-eared, so you can get it infinitely cheaper there. But mentioning that, it's not just for a shameless plug. Hopefully it'll give me a little bit of credibility and shows you that I'm not just somebody who runs a bit and can tell you about running. I've trained a lot of people for marathons, and so any sort of question you've got, if you've even if it's a bit random, I'm likely to have come across sort of sticky points and sticky problems throughout the marathon journey. So please feel free to ask me anything. Hopefully I'll know the answer. Also, you guys also have access to the GH Training Hub as well. I think that should have been brought to your attention, but if not, doesn't matter. You guys can download it and use it to your heart's content for free. It's available for the iPhone and also for Android as well. So you can go to the GH Training website, maybe, and Nicole or Becky will put that into the chat, so you can download it, put it on your phone, and things we cover today, I'll let you know if you can access further information, further details on the app. Basically, it's a one-stop sort of shop, really, where you guys can access training advice, training information, videos, about 150 videos on there, just really with advice on injury prevention, on nutrition, and some training on how to prepare for the marathon. So it's free for you guys, so you just crack on it and download it. It costs you nothing. You'll just have a code you need to put in, which the events team will give to you. Right, I think we're ready to go. Kahoot, let's do this. The first one is a poll question, no points for this. On a scale of 1 to 10, rate your current level of marathon training knowledge. Would you say it's 0 to 2, no, absolutely no idea what you're doing? Is it 3 to 5, a bit of an idea? 6 to 8, a very good idea of what you're doing? Or 8 to 10, step aside, you'll take it from here? There we go. Okay, so most of you, so at this stage of training, you've got a pretty good idea of what you're doing. One person has absolutely no idea, and that's absolutely fine. But split about, people know a bit, but not maybe a huge amount. To be honest, hopefully, whatever we cover this evening, even if you do know a lot about marathon training, hopefully you'll have at least one takeaway from you, or hopefully several more than that. But everyone who always comes on the webinar always has something to take away with them. It's a really broad church, marathon training, certainly when it comes to injury prevention. So hopefully you'll take something away with you this evening. Right, okay, there's no points for that one. These are points. So there's a slide on your phone. You'll have a slider. You just need to slide to the right answer, or you think it's the right answer, and press submit. So what percentage of people drop out of training before they reach the start line? So for those people who've signed up to run the London Marathon, or marathon in general, specifically the London Marathon, what percentage of people drop out before they've even made the start line? Here we go. So the tension rises. So it's quite a large, broad range of answers there, but oh, it's teasing you. There we go. And we drop back down again. So roughly between 25 and 30% of people, for those people who sign up for the London Marathon, drop out. So going over the years, it's around about 50,000 places are given out, and about 38,000 people make that start line, which just goes to show what percentage of people, it's quite a high percentage of people that drop out. And the overwhelming majority of people who do drop out, it's because of injury. And part of my job, hopefully here today, is to highlight common reasons why people get injured, and hope that we can reduce your chances of picking up injuries. So who's first on the leaderboard? Clem, well done, 907 points. Barry, second. Bev, third. Well done. Good. Plenty of questions to go. So it's another slider one. So of those people who start, what percentage of runners make the finish line? So assuming you get through the training and you take your place on that start line, what percentage of runners then go on to make the finish line? Again, quite a wide range of answers. Oh, it's teasing you again. The tension. Here we go. It goes right back up the other end, almost all the way. So yeah, it's a crazy. A lot of people don't know that just 1% of people will drop out of the will not finish the marathon once they've started. So no matter. If you're finding it difficult, going gets tough. The London Marathon is one of those races where people, the crowd, will you to the finish, no matter what state you're in. So 99% of people make the finish line when they start. So the moral of the story is get your ass to that start line and you will make the finish. So again, can't stress enough. It's the whole emphasis tonight, really, as far as injury prevention is concerned, is to make sure you get to that start line. Well done. Right. Okay. Has that changed the leaderboard? Bev's made it to the top. Clem's gone down to second. Right. Okay. Next question. This often gets people. How far should your longest run be? This is before the day of the race. How far should your longest run be? It's a bit of a trick question, and I'll explain. Is it at least 20 or 22 miles? Is it at least 18 to 20? Is it at least 16 to 18? Or does it just depend? There you go. It was a bit of a trick question. The 6 of you who just said it depends, in my opinion, you're correct. But to be honest, all of them are correct, really. In an ideal world, for your marathon training, you should build up to those sort of miles. So you'll want to go up to about a 16 or 18 mile run. Then you'll want to go up to about an 18 or 20 or 22. And some people like to put through a fourth run in there as well, of those sort of distances. That phone will stop, will turn off in a sec. So it does depend very much on how your training has gone. In an ideal world, if training has gone really, really well, then totally. Those are the sort of distances you want to be doing, the 16 to 18, the 18 to 20, the 20 to 22, and maybe one extra. The problem is with marathon training, with so many people, training, despite the best will in the world, training doesn't always go according to plan. You could get an injury, you could get an illness, you could have family commitments, you can have work commitments. There's so many things that can get in the way of an ideal training plan, that a lot of people sort of stress that they're not getting to these high mileages towards the end of their training. And this can stress people out. And what some people do is they'll sort of accelerate their training. So if they've been injured and they only reached out 12 miles and their training plan says they'll be doing 16 or 17 this week because they've taken a few weeks off, then they go from 12 up to 16 because that's what the plan says. I can't stress enough how important it is you don't do that. It's okay if you don't quite reach those high miles. It's far better to get into to enter the marathon undercut with maybe 14, 15, 16 miles, than to stress yourself, push those muscles too far, push yourself too hard, get an injury and hobble on the day, or maybe not even make that start line. So it's not bad if you don't quite get up to those high miles. Ideally, yes, but please don't stress if it's out of reach. I hope that all makes sense to people. We can sort of take questions at the end on that if you like. So I hope that makes sense. Bev is on fire. She's got 3 correct answers in a row. So she's top of the leaderboard at the moment, but ridiculous questions are to come, and the leaderboard could be leveled or played around with. So here we go. I have no points for this one. Just want to get your opinion. Regular use of a foam roller can help prevent injury. Is that statement a complete load of rubbish and they're a complete waste of time? Can they help? You're on the fence, you need to be convinced, or who doesn't know what a foam roller is? Foam rolling is also known as self-myofascial release. There we go. I love the fact that 5 of you, it's often the best answer, the answer I prefer most. 5 of you are on the fence, you need to be convinced, because that's exactly the reason why I'm asking you to get some golf balls. So if you haven't found any and you are on the fence, you need to try and dig something out that you can use, or certainly an alternative, which I'll give you a choice to. So 1 person doesn't know what a foam roller is, and 9 of you obviously use them and think it helps. In short, at this stage, yes, they can help. They're not the silver bullet. A lot of people think that just because you've got a foam roller, you prevent all injuries going. A foam roller can help, but you need to combine it with other modalities such as stretching, strengthening and stability work, but they absolutely can help. And for those of you who answered yellow, I'm going to hopefully try and convince you to be to answer blue by the end of the session. And for the 1 person who doesn't know what a foam roller is, it's a cylindrical tool that you use to release tension in tissue, in tight tissue. There's lots on the video library in the app and the hub to show you how to do that. But we can take questions on that later if you like. Right. Okay. So has that changed the leaderboard? No, well, no, because I won't any points for that. Silly me. Okay, so next one. There are points to this one, and there are 2 answers. So you have to select 2 on the app and then press submit. The most important piece of clothing or kit for a marathon runner is. There are 2 answers said. So running shoes, is it a Garmin or GPS watch, sports bra, or AirPods or wireless headphones? 2 answers and then press submit. There we go. Good. A lot of you got that right. Obviously, running shoes were right up there. 1 person can't run without their AirPods or wireless headphones, which I get. Some people really can't. I can't. I struggle to. And a Garmin GPS watch, important. But by far the most important out of those choices, really, for your health and injury prevention, are running shoes and a sports bra. I'm not going to go into too much detail on the sports bra, but the next question is on the same subject and might bring tears to the eyes. You'll see why in a sec. Sarah, well done. You've overtaken Bev. So 3 ladies at the top. Well done. Right, here we go. Next question. No giggling in the back rows, please. How far do unsupported breasts move during a marathon? 700 to 800 meters, 1.3 to 1.5 kilometers, 2.2 to 2.5 kilometers, or 3 to 3.2 miles. This is a taboo subject, and it's one that does have to be addressed because it's important. There you go. So the right answer is an eye-watering 3 to 3.2 miles. And the scary statistic about that is that 80%, that's 8 out of 10 women, wear the incorrect support when running. It's a massive problem in the running industry. And of course, because it's such a taboo subject, not many people talk about it. And I think we all know that it does happen, that there is a problem with some women having incorrect support when running. And of course, the thing to remember is it's not just a case of sort of how much sort of unnecessary movement you can get when running a marathon. The 250 miles you do in training can, with incorrect support, can cause irreparable damage to breast tissue. So ladies, I'm not going to go into too much detail. There's no need, but please, there are websites you can go and visit to get you more advice on to choose the right sports bra. And certainly on high street retailers such as Runner's Need and Up and Running, they have professionals who are trained to give you advice on what support. There are lots of different types, but best really to get some professional advice and get some decent support. So with that statistic of 80% of women wearing the incorrect support, it's a really good idea to get that support. I will move on. Well done. Bev's retaken the lead. Congratulations. We are getting close to the end of the marathon related questions and more closer to the ridiculous ones. So here we go. Okay, it's another multiple select. Slightly easier. What colour should your wee be before you head out for a run? Nobody this year has answered red initially, and long may that continue. So red colour, you got a very dark yellow in the yellow option, a pale yellow, or is it should it be transparent? Two answers are acceptable for this. Very good. Well done. Everyone got that correct. Yeah. So pale straw is just about acceptable, and certainly fluorescent absolutely is. Some runners don't take hydration as seriously as they should do. And in the cold weather, you can kind of get away with not having as much fluid. But as the temperature now starts to increase, and actually it could be quite warm on the day of the marathon, it's a good idea to get into the habit of making sure you drink sufficient fluid. If you start the rate any training run, or certainly the day dehydrated, you can get cramps and even injuries as well, because the muscles just need fluid to contract. So always try and start a run pale straw or fluorescent ideally, but most of you got that answer right. Congratulations. Sarah's made her way up. Well done. It's getting quite tight at the top there. There are double points for the last question of the day as well, so that can separate the leaderboard. Let's have a look. So another slider. Approximately how far can you run before you expend your carbohydrate stores? So the body can store a carbohydrate. It's stored in the liver and in the muscles. How far can you run generally before those carbohydrate stores run out and you effectively hit the wall? 0 to 26 miles. So whereabouts that land? Quite a broad range of answers there. The answer is anywhere between 16 and 18 miles. So taking the middle one there, so about 17. So after that sort of distance, that the body can no longer has sufficient carbohydrate stores, which is why we've then got to have a look at a carbohydrate replenishment strategy to make sure you get carbohydrates into you, so you can keep those legs running and fueled by carbohydrates. Nutrition is quite a complicated subject, so if you've got any specific questions, we'll of course cover it a bit later. But yeah, you do, for those of you who haven't thought about a carbohydrate or gel or jelly baby strategy to consume one when those runs are getting longer, we're going to have to start thinking about it very, very soon, and we'll discuss that in the nutrition section of the talk. So well done. That's changed the leaderboard. No, positions are the same, but Sarah's added a few more points. Right, next quiz question. This often gets people. The most important time to consume a high carbohydrate meal is either at breakfast. Is it 2 or 3 hours before a run? Is it eat moderate amounts throughout the day? Or is it 2 or 3 hours after a run? Often gets more people than I think it would, this one. Yes, of course. There's arguments for all the different answers there, but really the most important time, certainly now those miles are getting high, it's really important to consume a decent carbohydrate meal immediately after a long run. The reason being is that after a long run or intense run, the body will secrete an enzyme known as glycogenase, and that effectively makes your body much more receptive to replenishing and restocking those carbohydrate stores back into your liver and into your muscles. Now, outside of this window, your body will still replenish carbohydrate. It's just so much more effective immediately after a run, so that 2 or 3 hour window. So the best carbohydrate strategy is to have something immediately after a training run. A banana smoothie is really good idea, or some sort of shake, and then have a high carbohydrate meal in the 2 or 3 hour window afterwards. So a boiled egg and a piece of toast doesn't quite cut the mustard after a long run. You've got to look at something like a big pasta meal, a rice meal, potato. If you're posh, couscous, whatever takes your fancy, but you're going to have to really try and make sure you get those carbohydrate meals and make a meal into immediately after that training run, because your carbohydrate level, if you don't replenish it enough, you can pay for it with reduced energy in subsequent runs. So really important in that 2 or 3 hour window after a run. One person got that right. Unfortunately, that hasn't changed the leaderboard. So we still got Bev at the top, Sarah second, Linda third. Right, here we go. On to the more ridiculous questions now. Fastest marathon time wearing Wellington boots. Is it 2 hours 56? Is it 2 hours 59? Is it 3 hours 19? Or is it 3 hours 27? Yeah, a complete lottery who gets this one's right. It's an amazing 2 hours 56. To go sub 3 hours wearing Wellington boots is bonkers. So well done for the 4 people who got that one right. Oh, Bev's going to be annoyed. The randomness of these answers now is going to massively change the leaderboard. Sarah, well done. You've taken the lead. Okay, next question. Boris Johnson has a marathon time of 3 hours and 36 minutes. Is that surprising but true? Is that sensationally false? It was actually 4:43, or was it actually 3 hours 29? It's random this because it could easily be any one of those answers. And yeah, the answers, there you go. People don't know. Not many people think he's quite as good at going sub 3.5 hours. But as far as I'm aware, 5 of you got that right, and it's sensationally false. It might be true, but I did just make that up. It's interesting that I did, but it's one of those things, as you say, everyone knows he runs. He may have done, but yeah, I just made that up. Well done. That has massively changed the leaderboard. Right, it's all to play for. I think just 2 questions left. Oh no, 3 is it? Don't know. We'll see. Bleeding nipples during a marathon is a myth. So some people think that it's just a myth and an old wives' tale that's told, and it isn't actually true. There you go. False. Absolutely. So those pictures I had on that previous slide were photoshopped by my fair hand. If you're of a squeamish disposition, maybe look away now, because those are the original pictures. Hopefully, chaps, because it does affect us predominantly, that will make you realise actually how important it is to look after your nipples when running. So plasters help. You can get special plasters or creams that sort of lubricate that area just to make sure you don't get that rubbish. But yes, it does happen, can happen. Just don't let that happen to you, because it does bring tears to the eyes. I'll move on because some of you might be a bit grossed out by that. Right, we are nearly there. I think we've got 2 questions left. Prince Harry and Prince William ran a marathon together in 2014. It's little known because Harry hates publicity. Is that true or is it false? Again, I got 4 of you. Yeah, again, I completely made that up. It might have been true. It wasn't in his book, but I don't know. Still, I did just make that up. So well done to those of you who got that one right. Has that changed the leaderboard? A little bit. Right. So Sarah, last question. It's for you to lose now. Here we go. Double points this question. And just before I launch this one, the answer to this next question is very much in my opinion. And through doing these webinars for a while now, there's always one person who, in my opinion, answers this question incorrectly. Double points. If you could only buy one marathon training book, it would be How to Run a Marathon, Running Your First Marathon, Marathon and a Half Marathon, a Training Guide by Graeme Hilditch, or Big Book of Marathon Training. It's worth double points. It's always one. It's always one person. There you go. Always one. Well done. In my opinion, 14 of you got that answer correct. Congratulations. Well done. That's the end of the Kahoot. So let's have a look at the leaderboard. So 3rd place, we've got Norm. Congratulations on 6,337. 2nd place, Linda. Congratulations on 6,480. And 1st place, 7,536. Sarah, you have bragging rights. No prizes, just pride and bragging rights over the rest of your runners. Congratulations there. Well done. Let me turn off that Kahoot and I'll come back.
I think you've popped yourself on mute, Graeme.
Don't know how that happened. How did I get myself on mute? It must have defaulted. Sorry, guys. You can hear me now. So guys, a bit of a broad church of answers there. Hopefully, it sort of dispelled some myths. Just before we go on to the next bit, has anyone got any questions? If you sort of disagree or you think, well, I've heard differently to one of the answers on there, please say, and I will help to sort of answer your questions. If you've got any questions based on anything we saw there, feel free just to put your hand up and ask away. If no one's got any questions, we'll move on to the next part. Yes, we've got Norman. Norman, did you come second? It was you, Norm.
Third.
Third. Congratulations. You made the podium. Well done. Cool. What's your question?
So you talked a bit about carbohydrate replenishment and a carbohydrate meal afterwards. I thought it was supposed to be protein. Is that different to carbohydrate? No. I thought it was protein to repair your muscles. And what carbohydrate replenishment would you recommend during?
Two really good questions, and I'll answer both and go into a little bit more length a little bit later on in the nutrition section. So the body, when we run, we use different percentages. For example, right now you're burning almost 100% of your energy as fat. So we're not burning huge amount of carbohydrates, about 95% fat. We're burning a lot of energy as a fuel source, sitting down, doing nothing, being idle. We're burning a high percentage of those calories as fat, but we're not expending much energy. When you go through a walk and you go out through the intensity, and when you start running, that's when you start burning a higher percentage of carbohydrates. And so when you guys start running your marathon, you're going to be chewing through carbohydrate to fuel your legs and your basically for energy to help you run. There's a lot of the body will use fat as well, but when you run the marathon, you will generally be using a high percentage of carbohydrate. And we have a certain amount of carbohydrate we can store, as you saw in that Kahoot, a certain percentage or a certain amount of carbohydrate we can store in our liver and muscles, which supply our body with that energy to be able to run. So it's carbohydrate that we're using. Protein, when you go in sort of over an hour, the body will just chew into a little bit of protein just to help, but actually it's not really the fuel source, the macronutrient that's responsible for fueling our body. You're absolutely right. The protein, the amino acids, help to rebuild our damaged muscles afterwards. And so that's where you need to get amino acids from meat, which have complete proteins, all the amino acids we need, or a very mixed and balanced, varied vegan or vegetarian diet to get all those amino acids in the protein to rebuild our body. But the protein isn't responsible for the energy that we need. It's the carbohydrate that you need. So that's why you need to focus on the carbohydrate food. So your rices, your pasta, your potatoes, things like that. And as far as what you need during a run, are you happy if we address that a little bit later on in the nutrition section? Because it's quite a varied sort of answer, but it's a really good one, and we will cover it. If not, please remind me. But yes, it's really important that we take on carbohydrates during the marathon, so we don't end up hitting that wall, running out of energy, and basically not enjoy ourselves anymore, because it gets quite difficult when you run out of energy when you hit a wall. Does that help answer part answer your question?
Thank you.
Cool. Okay, no problem. Has anyone got any other questions before we move on to the next section? No, cool. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to find the other bit. We're going to have a break in a little bit, but what I want to do, I'd just like to go over a little bit of stuff on training, if I can. Right, there we go. We should all have this next slide. This picture was taken. My book, gosh, well, I'd say 12 years ago. You can see how old it is. It's when it's sponsored by Flora. And this picture really, to me, just sums up what the London Marathon is. For those of you who've done the London Marathon, you'll relate to this. For those of you who haven't done the London Marathon, boy, you're in for a massive treat, because this picture sums up the London Marathon. This picture was taken about 300 meters before the finish line, just before even the final straight. And this guy in a pink tutu looked quite ridiculous. Went up to this guy called Nick, who looked a bit more like a runner, and was in pieces, was in a bad way and needed help. And this guy came along, took him by the hand, and said, "Mate, we'll do this together. I'll help you." And he took him by the hand, put his arm over his shoulder, and helped him to the finish line. And it was such a emotional and sort of really a human thing to do. I was intrigued by the story. Were they friends, or what was the story there? And bear in mind, this is before data protection and GDPR. I literally got hold of the London Marathon organisers and I said, yeah, can I have the email address for runner 37945, please? And they said, yeah, sure, of course you can. Here it is. And they gave me his email address. And I emailed him and said, look, what was the story? What happened? And his answer just sums up the London Marathon. And it was so touching. I always like to sort of point this out at webinars and in talks. He said, I must admit, I had absolutely no idea who he was. He was just another runner in need of a little help on Sunday. It was the least I could do. The London Marathon is not about times, it's about people. The 50,000 runners with a story to tell and the millions of spectators willing you to the finish. And for me, that encapsulates everything, every essence of what the London Marathon is. it's not, or certainly shouldn't be, about how fast you can run the event. It's the reason why you guys are doing it. It's for a cause, it's for a charity, it's to raise money for good causes, and it's a real celebration of running, celebration of humanity, and it's such an amazing, spine-tingling, goose-pimpling event. It's really worth remembering that actually, that for the London Marathon, it's absolutely what it should be. This picture should really sum up, and his words should really sum up your race when you take you to that start line in April. You will realize what I mean when you run it, and those of you who spectated it even will realize it is an incredible event. So really, going through your training, absolutely pinned at the top should be to make that start line and to embrace and absorb and cherish the London Marathon for what it is. So if you've got a time in mind, I don't want to poo-poo it and sort of say don't strive to go sub X or whatever you're trying to get to, but it shouldn't be your top priority. If you can get it, great, but I would certainly pin right at the top just cherishing and enjoying and celebrating the London Marathon and absorbing it, rather than obsess too much on breaking time barriers, because the London Marathon special, and it should be cherished. So I'm not going to lecture you too much on that, but I honestly, when you do it, you'll know exactly what I mean when you take your place in that start line, and so when you're running it. So make sure you enter it for the right reasons. As far as training is concerned, as I said, guys, I don't want to spend too long picking holes in different training plans, because there are so many different training plans out there. But whatever training plan you're following, wherever it's from, whether it's from the London Marathon website, whether it's from the training plans that you can access on the hub, whether it's from any random book or magazine, whatever, please make sure you try and keep things as simple as possible. A lot of websites and plans just try and bamboozle you and get really confusing. And this plan here, this session, is one I picked from a website not so long ago. I know what it means. I should know what it means. It's my job to know what it means. And it's a good session, but it's massively confusing for those of you who don't consider yourself as sort of serious runners. So if you see a session like this in any training plan you're doing, don't bust a gut to try and translate it. It looks sort of like hieroglyphics. Then honestly, training should be really nice and simple, rather than you spending half of your time trying to translate and interpret what the session is trying to get you to do. So really, I've broken down training into some simple blocks, and hopefully it'll help to simplify your training a little bit. So every training plan should feature something like this. So the big block at the bottom, you've got your steady pace. That forms the bulk of your training. Long, slow, controlled, steady runs at a RPE, which is a rate of perceived exertion of 5 out of 10. So right now you guys are on naught. You've got putting zero effort into anything, apart from hopefully watching the webinar, and 10 out of 10, absolutely going for it, going super quick. So 5 out of 10, it's nice and steady, nice and relaxed, nice and chilled. That is where most of your training should sit. You should be able to hold a conversation at that sort of pace. The next stage up, and these are important but not essential for everybody, but really good idea to do, are the higher intensity sessions. So tempo, or a fartlek, or an interval. So a tempo run's about a 6 or a 7 out of 10. It's a bit quicker than your steady run. You're breathing a little bit more, but you're still not massively exhausted. You're sort of comfortably uncomfortable. You should do one of those a week or so. They're a good session to do. Fartlek, really good session. You just go quick every now and again, whenever you like, over a 45-minute run or so. They're good. It just pushes you outside your comfort zone and just overloads the body, and it increases your fitness. And intervals are good to do. I want to choose kilometer intervals or mile intervals. It just, again, pushes you outside your comfort zone, increases your threshold, and just makes you fitter. They're really good to do. It breaks up the monotony sometimes of those steady pace runs, and they do wonders for your fitness. Really good thing to do. Cross training, at this sort of stage of training, now you've been running for a bit, cross training really comes into its own. It's sort of something that isn't running really. So it might be cycling, swimming, rowing. If you're a member of a gym, just something that isn't running really. It gives those running muscles a bit of a break, and it can just still increase your fitness because you're still working your cardiovascular system, but it just helps to take stress off certain muscles, especially if you're carrying a bit of a niggle. Really good thing to do at least once a week. And if you've got a long-term injury where you can't run, you can exchange those sort of sessions with a form of cross training. It's a really good discipline to do, and really it should feature in everyone's marathon training plan. And the prehab exercises, which we're going to cover in a bit more detail, ideally that sort of yellow chunk should be sort of put like a jam in between each sort of one of those blocks, really. Prehab exercises 3 times a week are brilliant. So foam rolling on a regular basis, stretching and strengthening, really good thing to do. And you can do them at home. You don't need a gym membership to do prehab exercises. They're strengthening certain muscles and releasing tight tissue and stretching. It just keeps the body really well conditioned and helps to prevent injury. And that's what we're going to go onto now. That's all I'm going to cover on training. Has anyone got any questions they want to ask specifically about that? Hopefully you're all comfortable and confident with the training plans that you've got. If you've got any specific questions, really happy to answer them. But I hope that's given you an idea about what you should be doing in training. Has anyone got any questions before we move on to the next bit? No? Cool. Great. Right. Okay. So what we're going to do is I'll share the screen again. I'm going to have a break in a little bit. Give you a little bit of a chance to go and get a cup of tea. Here we go. So injury prevention and preventing common injuries. So these 3, actually there's one on the next page: foam rolling, stretching, strengthening and stability. There should be a slide, but there we go. Stability are the 4 sort of main things you really want to focus on doing is your prehab exercise. So when you're not running, foam rolling, releasing tight tissue in muscles, stretching tight muscles on a regular basis, strengthening weak muscles, especially those glute muscles, and doing stability work is really important. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly show you, I think the next one. Yes, here we go. So rather than going into a huge amount of detail, you guys during the break, you can download the app if you haven't already. This is just a very quick video of the app, how to register. You can go in and it shows you where to find all the videos on the above there. So if you just go down to the icon down the bottom, you've got the video library. You can go and search up whatever you like. So there is a filter at the top and you can choose whether it's foam rolling, stretching, strengthening or stability. And you can look at any videos just to give you an idea of different things to do for injury prevention. So glutes are common, so a load of different glute exercises. We're going to cover one a little bit later, and you can just go into the video library and it just gives you ideas of different exercises to do when you're not running, when you're watching TV, watching Gogglebox, or whatever you want to watch, just helping to strengthen and condition those muscles. And after the break, I'm going to give you a video to show you why these exercises are so important and how they can really help to prevent picking up injuries. So you've got stability exercises as well, which are really important to do, even if it's standing on your one leg brushing your teeth. Really important to work on stability exercises. Foam rolling as well, of course, is massively important, which we're going to cover. I'm going to ask you to use those golf balls in a sec. And also on the app, there are videos on nutrition as well. So during the break, what you can do is you can go and download the app and have a look and see if you've got any questions on that at all. Guys, if you've got any questions before we go to I'm going to go to a break in a little bit. Has anyone got any questions on that so far? I'm going to give you some more visual examples in a sec of why these exercises are so important, because it's something that a lot of marathon runners do forget to do. I can't stress enough how important it is to keep certain muscles really strong. And what it's always 2 minds whether to do this. In fact, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go out on a limb and I'm going to suggest during the break that you go and do this. I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to show you a video of a squat. And what I'm going to do is you guys can find out if you might be predisposed to an injury. This is free physiotherapy for you, so you can have a look. So what I'd like you to do is during the break, is have a squat. I'd like you to do, again, you don't have to do it, just out of interest, I'd like you to do this exercise. Take your shoes off, and I'd like you to form this movement. Arms above your head, and I'd like you to perform a squat. So arms over your head and do a squat from video yourself from 3 different angles with your smartphone. We're not going to see it. You'll have eyes, so you'll be able to see it. But you just analyze your squat from 3 different angles. So from your front, from the side, and at the back. That's all I'd like you to do. Once again, so video yourself with your smartphone or get a partner to do it. Video yourself squatting from the front with your arms raised. Video yourself from the side doing that movement there. And video yourself from the back doing a squat. And from this video, we'll very quickly go over a few common areas which highlight tightness and which actually can highlight and show where you might be predisposed to an injury. So again, you don't have to do that if you don't want to, but it's a good idea if you want some free advice on how to prevent injuries and maybe give an idea if you might have an injury waiting for you around the corner. So guys, what we're going to do is have a bit of a break. I'll give you a chance to go and get a cup of tea, a coffee, a juice, or I mean, it is 7 o'clock. If you fancy a beer, a wine, that's completely your choice. Crack on. I won't judge you. But yes, if you can go and do that squat, if you like, but also if you can go and get those golf balls, tennis balls work, any sort of hard balls. If you must citrus fruit, you are going to be doing something with them where they might not necessarily want to be replaced back into the fruit bowl, but that's your choice. You just maybe wash them under the tap, your choice. So that's the challenge you've got. So if you go and find something hard that you similar to golf balls, that would be brilliant. You can all take part in the interactive session afterwards. So squats, find golf balls, cup of tea, glass of wine, whatever you fancy. And what's the time now? We'll be back in, shall we say, just let's say 5 to, so let's say 5 minutes. Give you 5-minute break to go and get all those and see how you get on. So grab yourself a break, go find those golf balls, do that squat, and I'll see you in 5 minutes. Right, what we done? We'll give it another minute or so, just over, and see how we get on. Hopefully, we've had some success finding some golf balls or some other similar. Oh, hello. Oh, have we got Jennifer? What's that you got there? That looks good. So I've had people get everything. I've had people steal their little toys from their children's toy box. It all works. This makes what we've got planned even more cool, I'd like to think. But we'll see. What is it, Jennifer?
This is a stress ball, I believe. It has a little smiley face.
Oh, perfect.
I'm on the wrong computer. I have double screens. Okay. And I think this goes into my protein, like the shaker for the protein mix.
Yeah.
That's all I have at work.
No, that could be perfect. As I said, a few webinars ago, when I obviously released the video to suggest to bring golf balls, I had a webinar and somebody sort of did say, "No, I've got webinars. Well, I've got 2 limes," and I was like, "Oh, no, I asked for golf balls, not limes." And somebody said, "No, I've got lemons," and it was just or despair. And I asked them to do the test, but just out of despair more than anything. And it worked an absolute treat. So it does. So now I've sort of expanded out. So what's the most random thing you can find to make this trick work? So we'll see if it works with children's toys. Then fantastic. We'll see how we get on. Right. I think we've got. It's now. People should be coming back now with coffee, tea, wine, beer, whatever takes your fancy. Right, let's have an idea of, just to get an idea of successes for golf balls or some sort of similar implement. Have we got something? We've got things to show. Yeah, lovely, nice one, perfect. This is all good. Right, before we get on to that, actually, can we do that now? Yeah, let's do that. No, we're not. No, we're not going to do that now. We'll do it. Amy, we'll do it in a little bit. What I want to do now is just want to go over the reason I asked you to do the squat. Again, you didn't have to do it. It was just interesting, and some people, we sort of found some dysfunction and actually help people prevent injury with it. Who just add an idea? Put your hand up, whether on the screen or the emoji. Did anyone do the squat? That overhead squat? One. Perfect. Good. Okay, cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share the video and I'll give you 3 common findings. This is it's just the tip of the iceberg of these sort of screening tests that people like me do to have a look at where tight muscles are and where weak muscles are, and what you need, how to advise people which areas specifically to foam roll and which muscles are weak. So it is just really touching the tip of the iceberg, but it's still. I'm going to highlight the 3 common areas and see if we can find anything that might help you guys. So. What we're going to do is like to have a look at the video for those of you who did it, and have a look if you present in any of these ways. So the first one is from the front from the side. Did your heels lift up as you went down? Did your heels lift up from the floor like that, even subtly or even by quite a bit? When you went down, did your heels lift up? That's the first thing you want to be looking at. The second thing is, did you lean forward quite a bit? So did your upper body lean forward? Did you find it difficult to keep that body straight? And did you just lean forwards quite a bit? That's the second thing. And the third thing is, did your knees and feet collapse in a bit? So when you went down, did your knees come in and move inwards like that? So knees coming in and feet collapsing. Did they do that? Those are the 3 things. There are lots of other things I could potentially look at. Your knees can go out, your feet can go out. There are lots of little bits and pieces, but I'm just interested to see, did anyone's heels lift up? Again, raise your hands if anyone's heels raised up. Jennifer, yours did. And yours did, Dave, as well. Okay. Yours did a little bit, Jennifer. Okay, Dave, how much did yours come up? Go on, do you want to unmute and say?
A lot.
They did a lot.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm glad, not glad that happened, but actually for you, it's ultimately a real benefit. So the reason your heels came up is it highlights tight calves. You've got tight calf muscles, and tight calf muscles when you're a long distance runner can be problematic. Again, there's no guarantees. There's no sort of, you have this, therefore you're going to get this. It's not that clear cut, but you are at much higher risk of having Achilles tendon problems, and so you've got to be really careful of that. So you've got to make sure you do regular treatment on calves, stretch those calves well, foam roll and stretch those calves nicely. And you can also do strengthening exercises as well. Again, it's difficult to go into each individual example, and I don't want to bamboozle you with too much information on what to do. But it's really important if those heels don't come out. It's a precursor to Achilles tendon problems, and it's a really it's a thing to look out for. Are your Achilles tendons okay at the moment?
Roughly. I injured my calf in week 1 of training, so I had physio on my calves, but I know full well I had shin splints when I was younger as well. So
okay, so that whole lower leg area is you're having to manage that quite a bit at the moment.
Yeah.
Sure.
So
And that's it's one of those things. It really is a case of management. And this goes with actually any. I mean, it goes on with any injury that you have. Yeah, some people you might have to alternate a long run and do some cross training so you don't overload and stress those areas. As I said right at the beginning, or even with the best intention in the world, sometimes training doesn't go according to plan or as you'd hoped at the very beginning of your cycle. So with injuries like this, it is a case of just having to manage it. So the last thing you really want to just go on a sort of discomfort level. So if you find that over time that Achilles tendon is going from a 2 out of 10 discomfort to a 3 or a 4 or a 5, it shows you're aggravating it, and you are going to have to either reduce the intensity of your training or sort of go and get some more treatment. But it's certainly something to look out for. Certainly now those miles are getting longer. And Jennifer, yours didn't lift up too much, but they still lifted up a little bit.
Just a hair, yeah.
Okay, fine. So it's just something to keep an eye out for. Again, it does highlight sort of tight calf muscles, so it's an area to at least which areas to stretch. So it's a good thing to do. Okay, cool. Did anybody find when on the second point, anybody sort of tilt forwards quite a bit? Okay, Laura, you did. So you found your body went forwards quite a lot?
Probably about 45 degrees. I don't know if that passes as...
Yeah, that's enough. Again, there are lots of different potential reasons why people lean forwards, but a common one is tight hip flexors. You've got, again, hip flexor muscles are real workhorses when we run, and they can get really tight. We sit down all day. We're always in at that place of flexion. So we're sat down, our knees are 90 degrees and our hip flexors shorten. And this can have a profound effect on the body. And one of it presents itself doing that squat by leaning forwards quite a bit often. And the reason why it's important to keep hip flexors really well stretched is because they have a close relationship with your bum muscles. Again, I don't want to bamboozle you, but they basically, if you have short, tight hip flexor muscles, what's known as reciprocally inhibits, so it sort of switches off your butt muscles. They don't want to work. So your hamstrings basically put their hands up and say, I'll do it. Glutes don't want to work, I'll take the strain. And they can do it, but they just are not brilliant at doing it. And so you can end up getting really, really, really overused hamstrings and sometimes hamstring injuries. So if you loosen off those hip flexor muscles, so do a lot of stretching on hip flexors to make sure they're well stretched, the glute muscles have a far better chance of firing up and activating. So they do their job in the running gait, which you should do because they're really strong muscles, and it doesn't give the hamstrings or other muscles as much work to do. So hamstrings and lower back can actually be affected as well. So as weird as it sounds, if you have tight hip flexors, it can affect your hamstrings because they overwork, and your lower back because it overworks, and your glutes are just sat in the middle doing absolutely nothing, and you don't want them doing nothing because they are strong. So that's one thing you want to be working on, Laura, if you can, just doing a lot of hip flexor work. Yeah. There are exercises in the video library, so you can just put in hip flexors and go and do some stretches for those. And last one, it was knees in, wasn't it? We did. So did anyone's knees come in at all? No, cool. That's cool. That's fine. So we'll leave it there. So it's just tip of the iceberg. You can do it. You can progress that test by doing it with one leg, and you see how the body rotates. But we're not going to go there now. Is not the time. But hopefully that's just highlighted really the importance of how simple exercises can highlight tight areas. So guys, you know what homework you've got to do, and so please go and do it. So stretching out those calves and stretching out the hip flexors. Dave, go for it. You've got a question.
What would the cause of that be?
What of tight hip, yeah. So it's a precursor to something known as an Achilles tendinopathy, where the Achilles just starts to hurt. So in the morning, for example, if your Achilles tendon starts to get really quite tender in the morning, you can get an Achilles tendinopathy, and it's one of the runners' worst enemies. Really, is an Achilles tendinopathy.
That's where the legs spin in, is it?
No, so no, that's when your heels raise. So your knees come in. When your knees come in, that can show that that's often a precursor to something known as iliotibial band syndrome, so ITB syndrome, which is a really common running because of the way the muscles work. You've got certain muscles which tighten up and doing too much work that then pull on the iliotibial band, and this band pulls on the structure as it attaches into the knee. ITB syndrome is something you really don't want to get. I don't know if any runners have had it. You really don't want to be having ITB syndrome.
It's so debilitating.
Oh, so is that Sarah? Yes. So you've had it.
Yeah, I ended up, my entire posterior chain was just not working on one side because I ignored a tight hamstring that then ended up going onto the glutes, and then ended up with the IT band really pulling, and it was just debilitating for about 4 months and then really focusing on stretching and strengthening those muscles really has put me back. I can enjoy running again now.
How long ago was that? How long ago did you have that?
I did that in February of last year.
Okay.
And I continued. I was sort of 4 marathons into my 12 at that point, so I just finished because I didn't want anyone to tell me to stop running.
No, and that would set you back a bit. I mean, it's debilitating and painful, and it's like very much a case of one of those injuries that you want to prevent getting it rather than dealing. It takes more than just an eye pack and some Ivy gel to solve it. It's a real. Rehab is dull at the best of times, let alone when you've got something like that. So it is important. It's why we do prehab exercises. It's why you stop these problems from happening before they do, and it is really important. The problem with prehab and doing these exercises is that you don't generally tend to go to the doctor or do anything unless you're ill. You go to the doctor when you're ill. In the same sort of way, runners will generally tend to do things when they're injured. But actually, there are so many things you can do to help your body stop you getting injuries so you don't get those injuries. And it's often certainly in the case of ITB syndrome, if you get it, it's not going anywhere soon. So there you go. Hopefully, with Sarah's real life story of what to do, definitely don't want to get ITB syndrome. Do your butt strengthening exercises. Do your foam rolling, do your stretching, do your butt strengthening exercises. Really, really important. Right, I think we're going to move on from here, and I think it's time. On my slide is going to tell me that it's time to get those. Yes, it is. Fantastic. Right, here we go. So everybody who wants to be part of this test, who have got golf balls or an equivalent, what I'd like to do, I'll give you 30 seconds, 45 seconds to go off camera or turn your camera off, whatever you like. And I want you to bend down and see if you can touch your toes. Please don't strain. Please don't put your back out, ideally with your shoes off. Bend down and see how far you get down to touch. Some people might be able to make your toes. Some people might be a way off. Don't strain, just see how far you can get down to touching your toes. So Dave, Norman, you can't. No. Okay, that doesn't matter if you can't. I want to see how far you can get. Even if you can't, doesn't matter. I've had people do this and get down barely to just below their knees, and golf balls have worked miracles. So even if you can't touch your toes, doesn't matter. Just want to see how far you can get and make a mental note of how far you got. So is it 3 inches, 4 inches, 5 inches? Is it 2 millimeters? Is it teasingly close to your feet, or can you already get the tips of your fingers on? Have a look and see where. I'm not going to ask where you. Well, actually, was anybody really appalling on that? Anyone? No, Norm was. Norm, how appalling were you exactly?
I'm about a foot away from touching my toes, but I know, like after a run, I do touching my toes, and eventually I get down there. But
okay, fine. No, this could be a good result. This could be a good result. So fine. What we'll do is, again, we'll sort of see how well you do. We'll do the before and after. But for now, so keeping a half an eye on the time, what we're going to do is, so you've made a mental note of how far you got down. I want you to get said golf balls now. I want you to place them underneath your feet, on the soles of your feet, whatever implement you've got. Again, this is why I was a little bit reluctant for you guys to, who've got lemons and limes, to put them back in the fruit bowl. But again, if you don't tell anyone, no one will know. You can rub them under your feet and just roll them forwards and backwards. So it's basically a massage. You're doing a foam roll or a self-myofascial release on the bottom of your feet. So you want to just roll the feet. I'm going to cut to a video in a sec. So you want to get under there. Hopefully you can do this all sitting down. Just roll your feet forwards and backwards over these golf balls. It should feel nice. If you've got any sort of really tender spots, hold it on there for a little bit and it should dissipate and then go. So rub those feet with those golf balls. Jennifer, how are you getting with you all right with your random? Okay, cool, fantastic. I want to see if we get results for you. Fantastic. So keep rubbing those feet, and we're going to cut to a slide, and I'm going to show you another real life example as to why these bum exercises are really important. Okay, here we go. So you're putting those golf balls to good use. What I'm showing you here in this slide, hopefully you can all see the TV screen. Keep rolling your feet, keep rolling those feet, keep massaging those feet, those balls. This is a classic view of a case of a weak glutes muscle. Now you have 3 glute muscles. You have several, they're all key in their own way, but this muscle on the side of the butt is really, really key. If this muscle, you can see it says the normal picture here. It's that right glute muscle that you can see on that picture A, that's doing its job in that shot. The person's running, their right foot's touched the floor, and it's stabilizing their pelvis. That is a good place to be and where every runner should be. Unfortunately, a lot of runners are like B, so a bit more abnormal. So they've got a weak glute muscle, maybe some tightness. That tightness can come from a weak muscle, and the opposite hip can dip down. And now this is far from perfect gait, because as you can see, that lower leg then rotates in and has a profound effect on the rest of the body. And this can cause injury. Now, it's all very well looking at this in a picture, thinking, well, that's a diagram from a book. Surely that will never happen in real life. Well, fortunately, I have a video to show you exactly this in action. Now, this is just a video of a runner running in a park, and just looking at her there, you wouldn't have thought there's anything immediately wrong. She's just off for a jog, could be like one of you guys training for a marathon. Now, what I want you to do is I'd like to have a look at her waistband there, a little waistband at the top. I want to have a look at this bit here. As she progresses through gait, her left leg takes the strain. Look at what's now happened to that waistband. It's now dropped right down. Her opposite hip has dropped right down. From there to there, and you can see what's happened to her foot. Her knees caved in, and her foot has also collapsed during her running gait. The right side isn't so bad, but as soon as she puts her left leg down, you can see how much that hip is dipped. Look at that tilt in that pelvis. That knee has collapsed, and see how much that foot collapses in. So just because she's got a weak glute muscle here, it's about where that muscle is, it can't stabilize her pelvis as she runs. And it has a huge knock-on effect down the body. Now, this runner, she might, over time, because of the effect of this weak muscle, again, you can just see how much it dips. Because the knee collapses in, it's imperfect, you can start to get a bit of a pain in the knee. And most people, of course, will say, I've got a bit of a knee niggle and put an ice pack on it and get some strapping on it. Think my knee hurts, I've got something wrong with my knee. Well, yes, you've got something wrong with your knee, but it's a symptom rather than a cause of that knee pain. So by having weak muscles up in that pelvis, if they're not strong enough to stabilize you through gait, and because of the world we live in and what we do, certain muscles get switched off and aren't used, and these muscles just aren't used as much. And this is so common in runners to have this dysfunction and this weakness, and it has a profound effect anywhere from the hip to the knee down to the ankle. So I can't stress enough how important it is to regularly do these glute strengthening exercises to make sure this muscle stays strong. And so every time you run, you progress through gaits in a stable way, and it stops this kinetic chain of events happening and preventing injury. It is by far the most common reason why runners get injured, and I wouldn't be surprised. Sarah, I assume you saw a physio for your. Did you present in a similar way? Did they do a glute test on you? They did.
Yeah, it was the hip drop that gave it away.
Yeah,
so yeah.
Yeah, and that is a common reason you get ITB. So you get that pain in the knee, and it's Sarah's perfect example there. You get the pain in the knee, but actually it's a problem a little bit further up. And guys, this is stuff that you can do at home. I know I'm sort of sound like a bit of a broken record, but the number of times I come across people who say, I haven't got a gym membership, you could do all these exercises at home, and it's really, really simple. And I actually think the next slide I've got is a really good example of an exercise everybody can do. Yes, it is. There we go. So you should, this exercise here is a brilliant one. You should be able to do 20 of these on each leg. It's a single leg glute bridge. Super simple to do. Try and keep that pelvis nice and level while you're doing it, pushing through the heel as you go up, right up and right down. A 5K runner should easily be able to do 20 repetitions of this exercise easily. As a marathon runner, you should be able to cruise through 20, and actually 30 is a bit easy. You should then do it with resistance on you, so with some form of weight resting on your waist, so you're really working those glutes. It's a really, really good exercise to do. You should be able to easily do 20. I'm not going to ask you to do it now. Of course, you can do what you like if you want. Go and do it. But it's a really good one. You should, if you only do one exercise, rather than getting bamboozled with loads of exercises, if you only do one glute exercise, that is the go-to one to do. And just try and do it 2 or 3 times a week and build up. If you can't do 20, then you've got some homework to do, I'm afraid. So promise me you'll do some homework and work on those glutes. Has anyone got any questions about what we just covered there about glutes and stuff? It's actually sometimes quite nice that something like Sarah who's had a real life example of that exercise and that of that weakness, and you can sort of show to everyone actually how important it is. So has anyone got any questions before we go on to the big reveal of whether I've just completely wasted your time asking you to get these golf balls out? Anyone got any questions? No. Right. Okay. I think you're all anxious now, wondering why the heck I've asked you to get golf balls out. I think it's time, actually. Let's look at my next slide. Don't think there's anything else we need to share until we know it's time. Right. So simple. We could do that for 5 minutes more, but there's no real need. Often we should get results there. So hopefully you've given your feet a damn good massage. They should feel reasonable. What I'd like you to do now is I'd like you to go back and do exactly the same attempt to go and touch those feet as you did before. And I want to see if there's any difference. Can you get down further to touching your toes? No, this is the last webinar I've got this season. Nobody's failed me yet. So no pressure. And then I'll take questions in a sec and I'll pick on some of you and see what the results are. So go down and I want to see how you get on and if it's been made even easier. Right. Okay. Jennifer, I saw you first. 1, because you had random things to massage your feet with. 2, because you gave me a thumbs up. Could you get further?
I did. I got further. I was able to like fold my arms down on the floor, go past my toes even.
Wow. Yeah. Brilliant. So that's a big result. Fantastic. Well done. Good. Great. Okay, so we've got, I'm going to call you Natalie. It might be Natalie. Yeah, okay. No,
it's not Natalie. It's my daughter's computer.
Look, in this day and age, it could be, and that's absolutely fine.
Please don't call me Natalie. Call me Matthew.
Matthew, I should call you Matthew. How did you get on?
I improved. I've never, ever been able to touch my toes, get anywhere near. So it has improved. I've actually used golf balls before recently in the last 18 months because I had problems with my Achilles. So it worked for that massively because I think my other gentleman, I think it was Dave, was saying he had a problem with his Achilles. I got to a point of not enjoying running because of my Achilles. Everything else was fine. My Achilles was killing me. And touch wood, after about a couple of months, I know we haven't got a couple of months, it did improve. And my Achilles do not hurt now. And I'm quite sad. I have a golf ball next to my bed and I stand on it when I'm brushing my teeth. So that's the time to do it. But yeah, I can't touch my toes, Graeme. You'll never be able to do that.
Obviously, there are several reasons why it's difficult some people's toes, but I'll cover it in a minute. But actually, that can help often massively. And you're talking to. I don't think you're sad. I think you're my hero for having a golf ball while brushing your teeth. And you're talking to a therapist. I mean, you've gone straight to the top of the class as far as I'm concerned. So
I like golf. I tell you, I know more about golf balls than the quiz earlier on. I know that for a fact.
Good stuff. Well done. So who else we had? We've got another Natalie. We've got Natalie Gill there as well. Did you improve?
Yeah, big improvement. I could already touch my toes, but I could get my fingers flat on the floor afterwards. So pretty good.
Brilliant. Nice, good result. Hands up. Anyone else who got some decent results? Yeah, Dave, you got some nice one. Good. And we got Linda as well. Fantastic. Laura, did you do it? Yeah, you got some results. Brilliant. Cool. And Amy did as well. Fantastic. Dave, how far? Actually, you'll be interested because you're over Achilles. How far did you get down?
Yeah, I was probably halfway down my shin, top of my ankles, and I got to touch my toes. I stopped at one point, but I've got down to my toes. So that's
wow. That's a huge result. And actually, again, that shows. Yeah, I mean, the reason I'm giving this that's huge, and it just again shows the importance of releasing that tissue for you, certainly with your Achilles, tight Achilles. So that's a fantastic result. Amy, you put your hand up. Do you want to say how far you got? Your camera's off. You don't have to if you don't want to, but you've still got your hand up. You can unmute if you like. No, it's fine. It's okay. Cool. Linda, you put your last one. Linda, you put your hand up. So how far did you get? Oh, you need to unmute.
Oh, I could touch my toes anyway, but I think that's because I'm really short, so I haven't got a long way to go. But I could get my hands almost flat on the ground after doing it.
Brilliant. Fantastic. Right, good. So I'm glad I wasn't humiliated, or you don't think I'm an idiot for making you do that. There was full relevance in doing that, and I'll explain why. So guys, basically what you did there, you basically rolled your feet. You self-myofascial, you released by self-myofascial release fascia, which is a connective tissue that coats your muscles, and you release the tension in it, and it has a profound effect elsewhere on the body. If you've cut up chicken breasts or pork fillets, you will sort of see a coating, a sort of connected, a white sort of sinewy substance around these around the chicken or the pork. That is fascia, and we have it around our body. And there are nets. There's a different network of a series of different networks, about 8 or so networks that you that cover different parts of the body. It's all quite geeky. I love it. It's a bit boring for most people, but it's like a network of, they call them slings or nets. And around your feet, you've got this network, this sling of connective tissue or fascia that goes under your foot. It covers your calf and it goes up your leg into your hamstring. And what you've effectively just done there is you've released the tightness of part of this net in the feet, and it's had a huge impact elsewhere further up the body. Trying to give an analogy is always quite difficult, but if you think of a cobweb, you've got a cobweb and you pull a cobweb up in the middle, it'll change its shape. It'll sort of become a bit of a peak and then down the other side. Basically what you've just done is you've released that cobweb, and it's now flattened, and there's a lot more movement in it. It's no longer taut. And so you've just basically released the tension in the feet, and it's increased your hamstring flexibility. And it just goes to show how important, just on the whole, foam rolling and self-myofascial release is to help prevent injury. It has profound effects elsewhere in the body rather than just the area you're treating. So it helps to reduce that, or it helps to take away tension in that connective tissue. It helps the body to move better. It makes the tissue and muscles more extensible, and it can help prevent injury if done as part of a program of strengthening and doing stability exercises as well. There is, I generally only do this one on in-person training days, which is even more weird. I will often get somebody who's still a bit cynical about it, and do another test where they can't touch their toes. I say, right now, stick your tongue out and see if you can touch your toes. This is how weird fascia is and how bit geeky I am. If you stick your tongue out and then go down, you'll find you can get down closer to touching your toes. And then if you do it again and don't stick your tongue out, you won't get as far. It's weird. It's releasing tension in fascia further the body. If you don't believe me, it's fine. Maybe not now. We don't need to see it. We don't need to see your tongues out. But maybe not now. At another time, go and try it yourselves. It is bonkers. Please don't ask me why. It's beyond my pay grade to exactly. But again, it's all related to fascia, and I think it's the omohyoid that you release tension in. And anyway, it's all part of this netting. Geeky. I'll move on because I'm probably losing you. I'm losing the crowd for my geekiness. But anyway, has anyone got any questions after that? No, cool. Well, I'm thrilled that actually it worked. It worked a treat, and as I said, you don't think I'm all crazy for making you rub your feet with golf balls. But as you can see, you can do it with anything. A foam roller, golf balls are always good. Again, you can do it watching TV, watching whatever you watch on TV. Rub those feet. Even if you don't want better hamstring flexibility, it's still a good thing to do. You can still get plantar fasciitis. It's now called plantar fasciopathy, not plantar fasciitis. It's called plantar fasciopathy, which is affects runners. So you can just release tension in those feet and help you prevent injuries. So good, guys. What we're going to do now is, I think, unless you've got any questions on the injury aspect of things. Oh, actually, one thing I was going to do is this is the final thing. Again, the last preach, and reason why I'm a big fan of doing regular release. This video was taken of somebody. They were young, so they're much more responsive. But they're a video of them doing a squat, same squat as you guys just did. Look at his right foot. This is extreme. See how much that right foot just caves in. Now, this is a slowed down version of him doing that squat. You can see that right foot just caving in right there. It's lifting right up off the floor. It's a huge movement. And if you can imagine if he is a runner, that's not going to do him any favors at all. He'll be injured very, very quickly. 10 minutes later, granted with a bit more specific stuff on foam rolling and stretching, this is the effect it had. It still turns in, but as you can see, nowhere near enough. And that was just after 10 minutes worth of treatment. So again, I'll do a comparison shot there in a sec. It is a crazy difference just by releasing tight muscles in the body. Top one is before and the bottom one is after. So as you can see, it does make a massive difference by doing the foam rolling. So I will end my preach there and say, get that foam round and use it on a regular basis. So guys, what we're going to do now is we're going to move on to the nutrition part of the talk. It's often a difficult thing to present here. I can't do anything sort of cool like get your golf balls out. There's a lot of information thrown your way for nutrition. So this part of the webinar often, to be honest, just works far best if you just ask questions. If you've got questions, then often one question will come after. We'll roll on and we'll keep on the engagement. So anyone's got any questions? I've got a few things obviously lined up. If anyone's got any questions specifically they want to know about nutrition at this stage, now is a good time to ask and we can crack on. So just raise your hands and go for it and we'll start the nutrition bit. Let's say, so should we go to, I know, Norm, I know you, I answered half of your question initially at the very beginning. What was your second question specifically about? Was it carbohydrate during a run?
Yeah, it was fueling during a run. And I don't know whether it's to do with carbohydrates or more with hydration, but during longer runs I often get I feel very nauseous towards the end, and I've tried drinking more, I've tried drinking less, I've tried gels, just I haven't found anything that gets me not feeling nauseous. Okay, so there's several things. Obviously, to be able to give you an exact answer as to why you're feeling nauseous is almost impossible. So I'm not going to give exact diagnosis, but what I can do is just give theories as to what might be happening. You talked earlier about this, you weren't 100% sure about the carbohydrate you consume. So firstly, you need to ensure you're eating sufficient quantities of carbohydrates in between training runs. So you need to be eating enough. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to very quickly show you a graph, which is, obviously people are very surprised about how much carbohydrate they should be eating. This is a rough guide. So if you run 3 to 5 hours in a week, which is, you guys should absolutely all be up there at this sort of level right now, you should be consuming somewhere in the region of 4 to 5 grams of carbohydrates per kilogram of body weight on a daily basis. On off days when you're not doing as much training, you can reduce that, but certainly in those a day after a long run, in those days when the intensity of training has been high, you should be aiming to have 4 or 5 grams of carbohydrates per day. Some people need more, some people need less, but per kilogram. So if you weigh for example, if you weigh 70 kilograms, you want to times 70 kilograms by 4 or 5. And as a rough guide, this is the sort of menu plan you'd be looking at. Again, it's much better to put this into value rather than just getting you to multiply weight by figures together. It makes it a lot easier. So a large bowl of porridge, some decent helping of fruit snacks mid-morning, decent sandwich, couple of sandwiches at lunchtime, an afternoon snack, which could be a cereal bar or maybe some more fruit, and for dinner, a pint of dry pasta, that's roughly 200 grams, or about a quarter of a pint of rice. That amount there is sufficient for a runner who's running around about that sort of 3 to 5 hours
a week, and it weighs about 70 kilograms. If you weigh more, you're going to need to eat more. If you weigh less, then you need to you'll need to consume slightly less. But that gives you some sort of idea about the quantities of carbohydrate you should be consuming. It's really difficult to give everyone a really. And we got a question. Rebecca, go for it.
Hiya, yeah. So would those amounts be the same for a man and a woman?
It's two questions. It's done on weight. So
Right.
generally men weigh more, the higher muscle density, and they'll need to consume more carbohydrates. But again, these are very rough guides. But yes, generally they are applicable to men and women as well.
Okay.
But people have different rates at which they use carbohydrates. So generally, the slower runner you are, you might not necessarily need quite as much. This is why it's so difficult to present this information, because I know everybody wants exact information. For example, I did an in-person training day not so long ago, and we were on a similar sort of subject: how much carbohydrate should I eat? And the lady asking it, she was about 8, she weighed about 8 stone. She was tiny, and she was sat next to a guy who was about 6'2", and an ex-rugby player. So case in point, you're looking at two very different runners. They're going to need very different quantities of carbohydrates. So that's why the first place you go to is look at those sort of grams per kilogram of body weight and work from there. And as Norm sort of found out, there's every chance that Norm might not be consuming sufficient quantities of carbohydrates, so he might need to take up. That might be a reason for his nausea. Norm, do you feel fatigued as well and just not very well? You just feel a bit bleh?
No, not fatigue, but nauseous.
But nauseous. Okay, so again, very difficult to tell. But certainly now those miles are getting high, you are going to need to make sure you consume sufficient carbohydrates. Some people don't have a problem with it. Some people might naturally have a bowl of porridge in the morning. They always have had a bowl of porridge. They might have sandwiches or a potato, jacket potato for lunch, and they might have rice pasta for dinner. So they might be eating sufficient quantities of carbohydrate in their natural diet anyway. But everyone has very different relationships with food, and so you might not be a breakfast person. So generally, you've never had breakfast because you just never get on with it. Always in a rush to get out of the house. You might just have a light lunch, something like a salad or something for lunch. So all of a sudden, if you're at this sort of stage of training, you've had no carbohydrate in the morning because you had nothing to eat. You've had very little carbohydrate for lunch. And yet your miles are going up and up and up, and you're not consuming sufficient quantities of carbohydrate to meet your energy demands. You can get away with it for a while when the miles are low, but now those miles are starting to creep up. It's really important you get sufficient quantities of carbohydrate in. So that's why you really want to start those sort of values. So about 3 or 4 grams of carbohydrate per kilogram of body weight, and then look to build up from there. But honestly, scientists, they bicker like school children on how much. This is why we don't know. Lots of different views on how much people need. Some scientists suggest you have even more than that. So it really is very difficult to give you an exact answer. Yes, Laura, you've got a question.
Developing on what you've just said, actually. So I'm someone that doesn't have breakfast, and my other half has suggested now that the runs are increasing in mileage. Like I've got away with it up to 12-mile distance or whatever. And now I'm beyond that. He suggested to add a breakfast before going for these runs. So what I'm sort of struggling or not knowing is how long before a run and what. Okay,
no, really good question. Really good question on both. So as we sort of showed in the Kahoot, it's what you eat after you run and in between runs is important. So what you have for breakfast in the morning, well, a lot of people think it's like you've got to have a massive bowl of porridge to fuel that training run that you've got coming up. Look, it's a good thing to have, and certainly in the morning of the run, you're going to need to eat something. But what you eat for breakfast isn't ultimately responsible for fueling that training run. It's our liver and muscles can store about 500 grams worth of carbohydrates. It's equivalent of about, coming up to around about 2,000 calories worth of carbohydrates. So that's how much it varies between 400 and 600. Again, it depends on men, women, the size, etc. But around between 400 and 600 grams of carbohydrate we can store. So you can't consume that in one meal. So it's the food that you eat in between training runs and certainly after training which is important. That carbohydrate replenishment. But that said, yes, absolutely, it's important to get some breakfast in you, certainly in view of the marathon coming up, because the last thing you want to do is wake up at 6 a.m., which is every chance you do, depending on where you're staying, and get to that start line at sort of whatever time you'll get. You'll not be running until about 10 o'clock. You could be absolutely ravenously hungry, and your blood sugar levels can drop. So you want to get some food in you, and you want to practice breakfast right now. And what that is very, I wouldn't recommend the full English, eggs, bacon, sausage, tomato, fried bread, black pudding, etc., and hash browns. Not a good call. Trust me, I've done that before a race, and I'm never doing that again. Definitely don't go down that road. Porridge is a really good choice if you like porridge, but toast is another really good one. White toast, weirdly, brown products can irritate the gut a little bit. So a common one with the top athletes is toast and honey, white toast and honey. That's what they will have. There's no right or wrong answer. Muesli works. I love cranberry wheats. That's just what I like. Shreddies, I really can't get on with. So it's very, very individual depending on you as a person. And so it's a good idea to start practicing right now. Find out what you fancy and find out what will be practical on the morning of the race as well, because as I said, the last thing you want to do is feel hungry before the match. So you are going to need to get some breakfast in you. But again, I can't stress enough, it's what you eat for the morning is not ultimately responsible for completely fueling your marathon. It elevates your blood sugar levels, which is what you need, and it also gives you that sense of satiety. So something you like, you've got something in your belly, and you can go and run the marathon without that sense of hunger. So does that make sense? That answer your question?
Yeah, is there like a good a time window that's like perfect?
Well, generally you want to look at, again, everyone's digestive system is so different. I really wouldn't recommend eating anything an hour before. 45 minutes is generally the absolute cutoff. About an hour before you run, I wouldn't consider eating anything really. If you have too much food in your stomach, then the legs and digestive system are ultimately competing for blood. So if you're trying to digest food at the same time as your legs are saying, oh, I want that blood to run, then you're going to start to get a stitch and stomach cramps. So it's that. So that's one thing you've got to be aware of. So really, it's sort of, in an ideal world, again, if we're looking at race day, a good 3 hours before you have your first really big breakfast. And then what you might want to do is just about an hour and a half or so, maybe an hour before, you might want to look at some snacks. So a banana, really good option. You can get some cereal bars or some Cliff bars that are common sports bars you can get. So they're easily digested, different types. You get easily digestible carbohydrate bar that just easy to digest, but gives you that sense of satiety. It's so important to practice. That's the key thing. I could give you loads of suggestions right now, but they might all be wrong because it's just not what your digestive system likes. So what I'd suggest you do is you find out right now what works. And this goes to everybody as well. Practice what you plan eating on the morning of the race right now. So before you go out for your long runs now, start practicing, if you can, with the same time frames, what you plan to eat for breakfast and those little snacks, so you know exactly what you're going to be eating and how well you tolerate it. Because the last thing you want to do is try a different strategy on the morning of the race, and all of a sudden you realize, well, that didn't agree with me, and you spending infinitely more time in those disgusting toilets at the start of the race that you really don't want to be doing. So, and it is, you're nervous. Yeah, the digestive system does funny things to you at the beginning of a race. So you've got to be confident that nutritionally you're happy and you've rehearsed everything you've done in training. So we train for, of course, fitness, but also nutritionally as well. So certainly that morning you have, that meal you have in the morning of the race is really important. So practice it. Does that answer your question?
Thank you. Yeah.
So no problem at all. That's absolutely fine. Good question. Thanks. Anyone got any other questions based on that? No, cool. So I realized actually I only sort of half answered Norman's question. I sort of went on about carbohydrate beforehand, but actually as far as carbohydrate during a run, actually, can I just have a quick show of hands? Who's got their strategy about right? Who knows what they're going to be eating on the day of the marathon? I know Sarah will, because she's done a few. So we've got okay, cool. So let's get, is it Matthew? It's Matthew, isn't it? Yeah, Matthew.
Yeah, Matthew. Yeah.
Go on then. What's your strategy? What are you eating?
I did it a couple of years ago and it worked perfect. I had a bowl of Alpen and I had 2 bits of toast with jam, and I had that at probably 7:30. But then I didn't have anything else. You mentioned about banana or some sort of sports bar. I didn't have anything. That's all I had, and that was. Right. But I'm always worried about having a stitch. If I eat too much beforehand, I'm more worried about that than anything else. But that's all I had. a small bowl of Alpen, and some toast. Simple as that.
Right.
So.
Perfect. I mean, again, that's key. That suits you. Other people can have a bowl of Alpen and it'll make them feel rotten, and that's fine.
Yeah.
This is why we've got to practice it. So that's cool. How about Matthew? Just out of interest, how about for the run itself? Have you got a nutritional strategy for your carbohydrate replenishment during the run?
All I had was jelly babies. All I had. I'd had nothing else, and I drank water and jelly babies. But by the end of it, it's a bit. What was the gentleman that got a bit nauseous? Is it Norman? Yeah, by the end of it, you just get sick of it. You know, you get sick of water. That's how I felt. You know.
Yeah.
But I didn't have a gel or anything. Jelly babies. That's what I had.
I always that's good answer. So always love this part of the talk because it really divides opinion, and people are sort of passionate about their run strategy and what they have. You've got sort of the different camps of different people who have the different gels. You've got Team SIS gels. Some people go, yeah, I love SIS. They're the ones that go, and they look down on people who have high five gels as sort of a lesser citizen. The high five citizen thinks SIS people are sort of a bit up themselves. It's debate just ensues. So who has SIS gels? So those people who've had a SIS. So here we go, Dave. We got some. Clement, you've had some. Who likes a high five gel? There you go. It's always factions. There we go. So you've got Amy having a high five gel there. So look, there's for those of you who doesn't know yet. I mean, actually, that's a good question. Who has no idea what I'm talking about? Laura, you have no idea what I'm talking about. No. Have you thought about anything, Laura?
No.
That's all right. That's why we're doing this talk. It's exactly why we're having this chat. So straight away, we've gone through jelly babies. We've gone through gels. Both good options. And what's important is there is no right and there's no wrong. I did a webinar not so long ago, and at this part of the talk, this guy from Yorkshire was very opinionated and sort of butted in. And apologies for my bad Yorkshire accent. He said these gels are a lot of crap they are. He said, you want a jam sandwich, jam sandwich works for me every time. And he was really passionate about his jam sandwiches. And now nutritionally, on white bread, jam, it was easily digestible. It was carbohydrate, gone to the system. Nutritionally, I could not fault his theory for using jam sandwiches. The practicality of unfoiling or unwrapping a jam sandwich at sort of mile 10 of the marathon, I questioned, but nutritionally I couldn't fault him. But it just goes to show how everybody has got different strategies. Wraps are another thing. Some people will have a tortilla wrap, maybe with a little bit of peanut butter in there. Again, there's nothing really much wrong with that. If you practice it in training and it works for you, then and you're okay chewing a wrap, fine. It's carbohydrate, gets into the system. Normally, something like that might end up being less sickly for you than gels or something. So things like that are worth considering. Everyone's very, very different with how they respond with food. Jelly babies are also a really good option. What's that there? Oh yeah, okay, sports beans. Yeah, that's what you have. So yeah, again, you could try something different. Again, at the end of the day, it's sugar. It's what you're consuming. Different types of sugar, but sugar is ultimately what you need to get into the system. It's a form of refined carbohydrate, or sort of a simple carbohydrate. You've got a question?
I was just going to say, but that's sugar, not carbohydrate. You're saying
sugar is carbohydrate.
Okay.
This is where we get into really geeky stuff. Talk about monosaccharides, disaccharides, polysaccharides, and all that. Yes, and also you have different types of sugar. So different types of sugar can make people feel different. You've got glucose, sucrose, fructose. I'm glad nobody's switched off yet. This is getting really quite sort of geeky. But you have different types of sugar that the body will respond to differently. And so this is why there's no right or wrong. Different people respond differently to different types of sugars. The gels that you get are generally a formula that most people can tolerate. And again, there's no right or wrong. Personally, I like an SIS gel. If you love coffee, then try the double espresso SIS gels. They're awesome. But that's just me. So the SIS gels are a bit more, a bit thicker. The high five gels are a bit more liquid. And so really, for those of you who really are in two minds about what to have at the moment, what I suggest you do, because you are coming out to that stage where you're going to need to think about gels and taking them on, or any form of carbohydrate, or your jam sandwich during the race, what you want to you want to be practicing fairly soon, but what I suggest you do is you look at Lucozade gels, not because I think they're better than the other ones, mainly because they give them out on the day of the marathon itself. So rather than taking your own gels, which you absolutely can. If you love your SIS double espresso gels, brilliant. Take those with you. It's just a bit of a faff to carry them with you. I'll explain how many you're going to need in a sec. But if you're fresh and you don't want the extra hassle of carrying gels, then actually you can take your you can try with Lucozade gels, practice them now because they don't always agree with people, and then if you're good with them, then you know you got like peace of mind that they're going to be handing out SIS gels, Lucozade gels on the race day itself. So try Lucozade gels. Jelly babies are another brilliant option, and actually on the day there are loads of kids handing out jelly babies, and let's be honest, when's the next time you're going to have a perfect opportunity to steal sweets off children, and they'll be leaving with a smile on their face? So yeah, jelly babies, I've used jelly babies for race sport, brilliant, but it's important not to have too much, either jelly babies, either gels, or of course jam sandwiches, and this is where some people get their strategy a little bit wrong. More is not sometimes better. In fact, often it isn't better. You need to consume the correct amount of carbohydrate to make sure you don't end up getting stomach cramps. And so again, depends on how many of these sweets you're eating. This could potentially be a reason why you might not feel fantastic, but again, I don't know. You want to aim, everyone's again very different, and depends what sort of sugars you have, because different sugars can make you tolerate a little bit more. But as a rough guide, you want to be having around about no more than 60 grams of sugar, which is the equivalent of about 3 gels per hour in the marathon, doing a long run. Your body cannot tolerate or digest and utilize any more than 3 gels in an hour. That's 60 grams of sugar. That's equivalent of about 15 jelly babies. 5 jelly babies is equivalent to about 1 gel. So if you have more than that, again, you've got that problem where the body's going to start to compete and digest, and the body doesn't like it very much, and you can end up getting stomach cramps and feeling quite unwell and not feel great. So you don't want to have any more than 3 gels per hour. And as far as quantity is concerned, when you start having these gels, there are generally 2 different tactics. One tactic is to have 1 gel every 5K. For your long runs, or certainly for the day of the marathon. That's one tactic. 1 gel every 5K, which is about every 3 miles. Another tactic is not to have anything for the first hour, and then you have, most people are going to have around about 2 gels per hour, 1 every half an hour or so. Some people might need more if you're a high burner of carbohydrates. I burn a lot of carbohydrate when I run, so I know I need a lot. Other people maybe not need as much. So again, it's something you need to practice, but 2 gels per hour. That's the rough guide for what you're going to need. Depends how big your jam sandwich is if you go down the jam sandwich route. But that's the rough guide for those people who want to look at gels. Does that make sense to everybody? Yeah, cool. There are other options as well. You've got jelly blocks as well. Everyone has very different choices for what they have, but those are the popular choices. Out of interest, Sarah, because I know you've done a few. What do you have for your runs?
I feel a bit ashamed now to say I take chocolate spread sandwiches.
Oh, love it! Brilliant. Nothing wrong with that. Nutritionally, I can't fault it.
I cut them into tiny quarters, and I put them each into an individual, like small food bag, so I can get them out of my pockets quickly, easily.
Nothing wrong. Brilliant. Yeah. No, look, that's absolutely fine. Again, if you find a strategy and it works for you, then nutritionally you can't fault that. It's palatable. It'll probably be less sickly than lots of jelly babies.
Yeah, I've tried like so many different gels, and I just can't stomach taking them down when I get into the later stages. But so real food doesn't feel quite so yuck.
Yeah.
The gels that I do find, if I'm gonna have gels, is the Kendall Mint ones, because I'm like a child, and if it's got chocolate, then I'm happy. So yeah, but chocolate spread sandwiches work because it's real. It feels like real food.
Yeah, no, totally. I'd say the problem some people have is that chewing. Some people just don't like that chewing. But again, this is why I love having this conversation, because there's no right and wrong. So there you go, Nutella sandwiches. Why not? Crack on. So you've got jam sandwiches, Nutella sandwiches, peanut butter wraps, anything else random. Then if anyone ordered bits of Domino pizza, then let me know. I mean, I'm sure that's probably been done before. Maybe not so nutritionally sound, but honestly, but whatever you choose, practice it and do it on the day of the marathon. I cannot stress how important that is, to do it on the day of the marathon, whatever you've done in training. When you go to the XL Centre in the running show, and you're going to pick up your number, you'll find you're going to be seduced by a load of marketing companies. They've got all this stuff and it's free. They cut up these bars and they give you all this stuff and bargain prices. And what some people do is they'll try these new gels, these new foods on the day of the race itself. And it's a cardinal sin, because if you don't know, you don't get on with it. Then again, you can have stomach problems, and it's not pretty. So by all means, experiment and have it for another time, try it for another race, but always have on the day of the marathon what you know you're used to having. Can't stress that enough. It's about controlling the controllables. This goes on at all the things with that. Things can go wrong on the day. It just happens sometimes. You might trip over somebody's leg and hurt yourself, which I know has happened. Someone dislocated their shoulder by tripping over somebody. Look, that's not really often a controllable if there's so many people. You've got to control those controllables, and part of those things are certainly nutritionally you can control that. So make sure you practice exactly what you've done in training and have on the day. Has anyone got any other questions about that aspect of nutrition? Just want to cover a little bit of
Laura's just popped one in the chat about gels, if you are
let's have a look.
Able to look at that.
Okay, so yes, Laura, really good question. So yeah, they don't. You are still going to. Sorry, I forgot to mention that you are still going. So Laura's asked, if gels are suggested throughout the run, how come they're only at mile 13 and 19 on the route? Well, because you are going to have to. If they can't give out as many gels as most people need, because that's just a crazy number. So you are going to have to still take some gels with you on the run. Again, how much you need is going to vary, but you are still going to need to have some gels with you, 2 or 3, depending on what's on your individual rate of carbohydrate expenditure and how many you've used in training. I mean, on that, it's again, it does vary so much how much carbohydrate people need to consume and how much they expend when they're running. And although I don't wish this on anybody, sometimes it's often a good thing if you go for a training run thinking you're on a good nutrition strategy, that you've consumed enough carbohydrates, and actually you find in one of your long training runs, you realize actually you're low in energy, it feels like you're wearing lead boots, and you bonk, which is basically the other term for having low blood sugar levels. You hit that wall. You then realize it's a real thing, and you realize, well, I haven't got enough carbohydrate. I am not eating enough either before the training or during the run itself. So then you need to tweak it. It's a good eye opener, because sometimes if you don't experience this low blood sugar, you don't think it's a thing and it's not going to affect you. And that's happened quite a few times before. So look, some people rarely, some people can get away with just a couple of gels, and of course using some of the Lucozade Sport, because of course that's got sugar in it as well. You might be able to get away with that, but most people can't. So you're still going to need to take some gels with you. Again, practice whatever you take on in training to do on the day. But so thanks for pointing that out, Laura. Then you are still going to need to take some gels with you on the day, because generally 2 isn't going to be enough. Again, by what we said earlier, everyone's got that 16 to 18 miles worth of carbohydrate that you've got the capacity for. 2 gels isn't enough to see you through for the next sort of 8 miles generally. So you are going to take on some more. Yes, I've got Paige. You got your hands up.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Hi.
Hi. I have a little bit of a weird question. So I know we've talked about like carbs and sugars, but I tend to have trouble like keeping enough salt. So I don't know if you're going to talk about, I don't know, electrolytes.
No, I'm really pleased you talked about that. Yeah. So what's your thing with salt? Say that again. Sorry.
Oh, I just always need it. Like when because I play football as well, and I'm always just like having salty snacks like on the side and like drinking a ton of Lucozade, like, or I just don't feel well. So I like was reading that you could get like hydration, like salt tablets or like electrolyte tablets, but someone looked a bit like weird.
No, you're absolutely right, and it's a really good point. I'm not going to go into exactly how much sodium and salt you consume in your diet. Everyone's very different, but salt, you need salt in your diet, and certainly on the day of the marathon, it could be very warm. You are going to need salt. These electrolytes, because it ultimately keeps your legs pumping and it keeps the muscles functioning. So I certainly don't recommend people reduce their salt intake. In fact, salt tablets on your training runs or electrolyte tablets, they basically, for those of you who don't know, they're sort of you can lots of different brands. It flavors the water a little bit, but also gives electrolytes, so sodium, potassium into the drink, and so it helps to enhance your hydration a little bit, and it makes sure you've got enough electrolytes. Most people are fine during the marathon and don't end up running out of salt, but actually its low electrolytes can be a problem, certainly on marathon days. And it's a really simple reason as to why. So it can be, it's almost opposite to what you're making, Paige. But in answer to your question, Paige, yes, absolutely. Salt tablets or electrolyte tablets are really good to pop into a drink. Nothing wrong with that at all. And yes, absolutely suggested. But on the other side of the argument, too little salt, this can happen, and it happens every year. I do marathons and training day, webinars and training days. If you see the forecast is going to be warm for the day of the marathon, what people can do is take a little bit of, have a little bit of knowledge and apply it inappropriately. So you see it's going to be warm, you think, geez, I'm going to need to drink loads of water because I don't want to get dehydrated. And so some people take this to the extreme, drink excessive quantities of water in the days leading up to the marathon, and they end up weighing out the excess water they're having. So, but rather than just that water they're weighing out, they're also leaching out essential electrolytes from the body. At the time, you don't really notice because you can't see them being excreted, but it is happening all the time. And what happens on the morning of the run, people drink excessively again because they realize it is going to be weatherman says it's going to be even warmer than anticipated. So people drink excessively, still weighing out too much and too much electrolyte. And of course, when you get running, you start sweating. Sweat is salt is in sweat. So you've leached a load of electrolytes and salts out of your body. You're sweating now, and so you've got salt coming out of your sweat. And it can lead to a condition known as hyponatremia, which is low salt. And it can be fatal. I don't want to be alarmist, but it can be fatal. It basically messes around with your intracellular and extracellular water levels. It draws water out from your cells, and it can have a really dangerous effect on the body. I've come across people who've had hyponatremia before, and it makes you feel incredibly unwell. You're straight on a drip to get salts back into you. So the point I would just like to make is, rather than sort of shock you and think it rarely happens. As long as you follow the general guidelines, once you've had enough fluid, your wee's running clear, you're hydrated, you don't need any more. It's people who take that advice to the nth degree that end up getting in trouble. So dropping electrolyte tablets into drinks is a really good idea. Not restricting salty foods. And certainly, Paige, I very much doubt, by the sounds of it, you're going to have a problem with hyponatremia on the day if you like your salty foods. But again, there's a problem with having too much salt. You can have too much salt, and you can end up getting having water retention. So you've got to get, everyone's very different, but you've got to make sure you don't leach salts out, because salt ultimately does help drive the muscles forward and helps to contract. Has anyone got any questions about the nutrition aspect before we go on to sort of stuff on race day? We've covered quite a bit there. Dave, you've got one.
Just mentioned about water and water intake. Is there a rough guide about how often you should be drinking water? I know it's probably individuals you more.
Yeah, there is. Yes and no. It is a rough guide, but the good news is I can give you a good way to go and find out how to give you a much better idea of what your individual fluid loss is. Again, I used that example before about in the in-person webinar of one lady being very, very small, about 8 stone, this other ex-rugby player being 6'2", about 18 stone. Their fluid intakes are going to be very, very different. So if I say to one of them, you're going to need 100 milliliters of water, well, you know, when one guy's nearly 3 times heavier than that, it's going to be a massive, that's a huge amount of inaccurate advice. So it's very difficult to give general figures, but the best way to find out how much fluid you need and what your individual fluid loss is simple. You get on scales. So let's, for example, say you've got to run tomorrow, you've got an hour's run planned. Stand on those scales, start naked in the suit you were born in, just before you go out for your training run, and have a look at what the weight is. Put your clothes back on again, then go for your run, an hour's run. You won't need fluids for that really, but if you go out for your hour's run, if you do, then you have to sort of make allowances, but go out for your hour's run, come back again, stand back on the scales again, start naked, the suit you're born in, and have a look at the weight. The weight that you've lost, the overwhelming majority of that is going to be fluid, and everyone is going to be very, very different. Sounds a bit gross. I'm a sweater. I lose a lot of fluid when I run. So that sort of run, I would easily lose these sort of conditions, 3-4 pints, which is equivalent of 3 or 4 pounds. So 1 pound equals 1 pint of fluid. So it's one way you can find out what your individual fluid loss is. Some people like to keep diaries of their training, and that's one thing you can put in a diary. Hours run at 12 degrees, at my steady pace run, you lost 3 pints or 3 pounds of fluid. You might want to do it for different temperatures to find out what your fluid rate loss is, but then you get to paint a picture of what you know, how much fluid you lose. So it gives you an idea of how much ish you should be replenishing. Look, on the day of the marathon, you're not going to end up the race, finish the race, more hydrated than you were when you started. There is a degree of tolerance, but of course you can't afford to become excessively dehydrated. Really, a couple of percent of loss of body weight, it's not a good place to be. So you want to try and take on as much fluid as you need to for your body. And again, you're after a rough guide for most people. Again, it depends on the conditions. Around about 400 milliliters per hour. Some people only need 500. Some people can get away with less. Is a rough guide to what you want to be looking to consume. There are loads of water stops on the marathon, so it's a good idea just to take a drink when you can. Don't take one massive gulp and scull it. Lots of little sips. Don't get air in. Just try and be careful when you drink. But you need to try and take in as much as you feel you can. On your training runs, that's different, unless you've got a really, really loving partner who's happily going to hand a water bottle out and then drive up to the next point and hand another water bottle out. It's really difficult. And so strategies when training to take on fluids are either, I live in the countryside, so I've planted water bottles around, behind sort of, fence posts, etc. When taking those on. If you live in urban areas, you might just want, because contactless is easy, go and grab a water bottle from a store, quickly get some fluids in. There's no easy way of doing it, but you are going to need to make sure you practice drinking on the run and also taking on fluids, because it's a bit of a skill. Some people like to take water bottles with you. That's fine. Some people don't. Some people like the camel packs on the back. Again, it's extra weight, but some people just like that comfort that there's fluid there. There's no right and there's no wrong. You just got to do what suits you. But ultimately, you are going to these longer runs, and certainly now it's going to. There might be a beast from the east, but it is soon going to start to warm up. You are going to need to be much more aware and conscious of your fluid, because you are going to start to dehydrate more as the temperature starts to warm up a little bit. Cool. I hope that answers your questions. Has anyone got any other questions before we move on to the last little bit about race day tactics? No, cool. There'll be a chance at the end, guys, to answer more questions. It's going to go into the last little bit. I'm not going to go too much into this, but one point I do want to make. I've covered quite a lot of this. Skip over my slides. Is the race day itself. Now, this is by far the biggest tip I can give all of you. Point 1, point 2, point 3, point 4, and point 5 are equally valid. And I can't stress this enough. So I'll tell you a story about this and why I'm so keen. I've made a mistake. It was my first marathon I did many years ago now. I was aiming to do a 7:45 even split for the marathon. And I did my first mile, I joke you not, in 5 minutes and 55 seconds. I slowed down a bit for the second mile in 6 minutes and 30 seconds. But that was basically my race done and dusted. I felt fine at the time, but trust me, come mile 15, 16, you have a significant sense of humour failure, and you're in bits. You're deep in the pain cave. It's a horrible place to be. And it's so easy to do. You've got adrenaline coursing through your veins. You've got excitement. You would have tapered, so not much training for 3 weeks. You're excited. Everyone's making the same mistake. And so everyone just tears off so quick. I mean, sometimes you can't, because you've got lots of people. Sometimes you've got lots of people in front of you. But for those people who see open tarmac in front of them, it's a mistake that so many people make. And again, it's about controlling those controllables. This is something you can control. If you get this wrong, as I've experienced, it can really ruin your day. And I just want to show you a real life example of what happened. This was a Cardiff half marathon heart rate I did. Pretty good heart rate, that is. You can see the orange zone there is sort of where I should be at a half marathon. It's sort of going reasonably quick, but not ridiculously quick, which is in the red zone. But we're coming towards the end of the race, and you can just see my heart rate there. Starts to creep up towards the end. Last 3 miles, put my foot down, heart rate goes up, and that's a pretty good heart rate graph. The following year, Sophie Rayworth asked me to pace her for the, I think it was Royal Park's half marathon. And cut a long story short, we got separated, and she ended up being a bit further in front of me. I saw her at the other end of the dual carriageway, because it sort of looped around, and I started chasing after her. Spot where I started playing Chase Rayworth. There you go. You can see a crazy spike in heart rate graph. There you go, my annotation here. So obviously you can see at this point here, that's where I played Race Rayworth. I gave up somewhere here. It's around about a mile or so, but I didn't. My heart rate never dropped. Heart rate never dropped, even though my pace dropped. I was exhausted. So the heart rate stayed high. I think I must have died a little bit around about there. And towards the end, I don't remember the race much at all. I don't even know what the white zone here means. I mean, red zone is supposed to be your maximum capacity. White zone is surely, it felt like near death. Not much fun. I had an awful time. Sophie got a PB, so she was happy. And I've luckily lived to tell the tale and to tell you and illustrate how easy and that was only for half marathon. Imagine if you made that sort of mistake in the marathon. So please, please don't go off too fast. The one other point I would like to make as well is you guys have signed up to 26.2 miles, but if you guys are on Strava, you have GPS watches, there's no guarantee you're only going to be running 26.2 miles. There is a racing line. And so if you follow that racing line, you will run 26.2 miles. If you don't or can't follow that racing line because there are too many people and you're pushed out, don't be surprised if your Strava stats tell you that you've run quite a bit further. Some people have ended up running 28 miles on the day of the marathon because you're not taking that racing line. So some people might see that as exceptional value for money. Some people might just see that as a ridiculous thing that you only signed up to the 26.2 bloody miles and I ended up doing 28. Whichever way you want to look at it, just be wary. So there is a line on the road. Unless you want to get exceptional value for money, try and stick to that line as much as possible. If you can. But yeah, I mean, as far as the day itself, I'll sort of hark back to the first thing I wanted to say, really, with that picture of that guy who helped him. The marathon the London Marathon is an incredible day. It's one that you'll never ever forget, and people come back and do it time and time again for good reason. It is a sensational event, so I really hope that you get the most out of it and you come back again year after year and keep on doing it. Make sure you make that start line, please. It'll be worth it. Trust me, it'll be worth it. And I hope that certainly Dave, your Achilles, your tight calves hold up, and everybody else stays injury free. I'm conscious I don't want to take up a huge amount more of your evening. I'm here if you want to ask any more questions now, guys. I'm really happy to take any more questions if you've got any on anything, whether it's training, whether it's the nutrition, whether it's injury prevention. I'm really happy to take your question, or I guess, or Nicole, and I'm sure Becky are happy to take your questions as well about anything with the charity. But they're there to support you throughout, and as you know, throughout your training. So please remember that if you've got a question, query, do get hold of them, and please use the app. Actually, out of interest, has anyone downloaded the app yet? It's available for you. Do it this evening if you can. Again, it's free for you guys. Just put the code in. It's in the chat. Download it. Have a look. It's there to support you. You'll also get weekly countdowns as well. So if you subscribe to notifications, you'll get weekly countdown videos that gives you an idea of what you should be doing every single week as we get closer to race day. And so the tips when you get close to those to that taper period are quite helpful as well. Actually, one thing I didn't cover. I'm fairly safe to say most people aren't that familiar with marathon training or having done marathons. Very different to half marathons, because you guys have done quite a bit of training up until now. Your body is slowly getting addicted to running. It's kind of gets that hit, that fix, that endorphin rush. As you sort of get to that 3-4 after your long training run, your training will drop. It'll taper, and you don't do as much. Just please warn your nearest and dearest, during that 3-week period, you're likely to be a really grumpy sod for most of it. They're called taper tantrums, and they are real. You snap, you get short. It's like we're addicted. You're addicted to running, and you're not getting that hit, that fix. You get frustrated, and so a lot of people get really grumpy. And so warn your nearest and dearest that you might snap and you might be a bit edgy. Look, it doesn't, just because you're tapering, you reduce your intensity, doesn't mean you can't run. You do a little bit of training, you just don't do nearly as much. But the thing is, the body wants this hit, it wants an endorphin rush, and a lot of people want to do interval sessions to get that sort of that rush. But you shouldn't do it. You really shouldn't do it. You need to calm that body down. You need to replenish. You need to eat a balanced diet, and you need to try and ride the storm of these taper tantrums. They are a real thing, so yeah, please warn your nearest and dearest that you might be a little bit grumpy for a week or so as you get close to that marathon. Oh, we've got a question. Rebecca, go for it.
So just on that, like the taper bit, is that basically stop all exercise? Or
no, it's not stop all exercise at all. It's if you think about like a curve, so your training sort of gone up like this, and it sort of then starts to come down. So it's a reduction in training. It's a real odd concept, tapering. People, your mind plays tricks on you. You automatically think that, well, I've been training for 16 weeks plus this, or 3 months, 4 months, the marathon. You are the fittest you've ever been, and you think you're going to lose all of that hard-earned fitness. And they've done so many tests on this. You really don't. You really don't. They've done tests with people who've trained right up to race day. People who have adopted this 3-week taper period are as fit as people who keep on training right up to that time. That recovery is so important. So it's just a reduction in training. So if your long run, for example, your last long run is 20 miles, you might do a 11 miler the following week. After that, you might do a 6 miler. After that, you might do a 4 miler for your long run, and little runs in between. You might want to do cross training as well, for example.
Okay,
you don't want to stop. You've got to keep those legs awake and happy and moving, but you don't want to be doing anywhere near the same level of intensity that you were doing during training. Your body will thank you for it. Your mind won't. Your mind will be really angry with you, and it'll say, "Give me exercise," but you can't. You can't do it. Don't give in. Just try and give their legs and everything all a bit of a break, and trust me, you will not lose that hard-earned fitness. I promise.
Okay,
I
thanks.
promise. Okay, no problem. Any other questions on tapering or anything? No. Oh, there's one. Dave, go for it.
You know, in most of the training guides, it talks about easy, steady, tempo.
Oh yeah.
Marathon pace. Bit confused by it all. Where would you see marathon pace in terms of steady? A bit above it, a bit below it?
Oh man.
I know again it's probably
totally. And I don't want to give a really vague answer. But you're totally right to be confused, especially those three. You got easy pace, you got steady pace, you got marathon pace. How much difference are you looking between them? It's really difficult to know, and it depends on individuals. So generally, the rough guide will. You have different types of marathon runner. You got people who just want to get to that start and just their easy pace is going to be their marathon pace, because that's all they can do. You have other people who are maybe a bit more conditioned, had a bit more running history, and they will adopt training slightly differently. And the view is that your long, slow run is slower. So the runs you do on your weekend is going to be a slower pace than you anticipate running the marathon in. So you might, I don't know, for argument's sake, your long, slow run might be a pace of 10-minute mile pace, but actually on the day of the marathon, you anticipate running 9.5-minute mile pace. Some people will they're happy that, but then that confuses people. Think, well, how do I know I'm going to be able to run 9.5-minute miles if I'm only running 10-minute miles doing training? And this is where it can get. So I don't want to delve too much into training. Every training plan is different. It gives you different information. But what you can do in that sense is you can experiment and how you feel in training. So for example, if you do a 20-mile training run, you might want to do a 10 pace of that long, slow run pace, and then run at 9.5-minute mile pace, using that example, and see how you feel. Is it tolerable? Is it happy? Are you okay with it? Generally, that is for people who've done more marathons and people who are used to, who know their body very, very well when it comes to marathon running. But then some people, as I've done in the past, I will do my long training run at the same pace I anticipate running the marathon, and it's fine. So there's no right or wrong, and some people are very possessive about their views and what's right and what's wrong. For most people listening to this now, your steady marathon pace is going to be the pace you are going to be running on the day. Simple as that. And that's where I'm going to stick with. We can get, say, more complicated stuff. If you look at heart rate and feel, you can find out ways and how well you tolerate that marathon pace at longer runs. But again, that's for slightly people who've probably done a lot more races, and it's risks confusion. So your easy run is super easy, really, and that in that time after you've maybe done a long run. I'm not a fan of the easy pace because it's almost sort of almost not worth it. I prefer a cross training session, to be honest, rather than an easy run. But again, look, everyone's very, very different. There's no right and no wrong. But yeah, I'm not sure if that does answer your question. I hope it does. It was a sort of a bit of a non-answer.
Yeah, it does in a way. Like the easy run I've been trying to slow down, do an easy run. But then I do feel like I've come back and the wife's like, have you actually been out for a run? Or have you in the pub? Was one of the questions I was given. And I was like, yeah, I've run 12 miles, it's fine. But
yeah, I mean, look,
I'm just trying to gauge where my steady run is in comparison to perhaps a marathon pace. It talks about steady and marathon pace. I don't know if that's steady as marathon pace is or slightly different. Because it talks about in two contexts rather than steady being marathon pace, if that makes sense.
No, totally. And this is why, a lot of marathon training plans are sort of vague because there's so much. I've always hated. I've been asked to do marathon training plans for Runners World, women's running, men's running, and it's I could just knock up a marathon training. I've always hated writing training plans because if you go into the detail and you want to really specific and give accurate information, they are really complicated because they vary so much for individuals. For example, a beginner training plan. What's a beginner runner? I've had a beginner runner because I've never run before, and she literally couldn't run 100 meters without being out of breath. That's a beginner runner. She hasn't run before, I'm sure. I've also had a runner who's come to me and she said, I'm a beginner runner, I've never run before. She ran for 3 miles. She's also a beginner runner, but physiologically, she's just made to run. Her body is just a much better running machine than the first lady. But they've never run before, so they're both beginner runners. So that's where you look at training plan says beginner. Well, they're both beginners, but one shouldn't be following a beginner, should be an intermediate. But she said, I'm not an intermediate runner, I'm a beginner. So it gets really difficult. So in the same sort of way, an easy run, steady run, it can get confusing. I guess the one takeaway from it is any movement is good. What you want to do in an easy run, whether it's a slow run, you're stimulating the body to increase the production of capillaries, so your body becomes much more effective and resistant to fatigue. So it's just used to exercising for longer periods of time. So even though those slower runs might not seem effective, they are effective because it's making you more efficient with how you use carbohydrate. It can make you burn fat a little bit more effectively, and it can spare carbohydrate, but also it enhances this capillarization. So even if you have a walking break to your marathon, it's still doing something. It's still enhancing your physiologically. It's still conditioning you for long distance running. So the easy run, even though you feel like it might look like you've just come back from the pub and you haven't gone for a jog, there is room for it, so you can still do it. But again, you can look at, well, if you've got other things to do, not necessarily not go to the pub, but cross train, that can also be a good thing to use other muscles. So there's lots of different ways you can do it. But this is why it can get so confusing. But hopefully, as you get more experienced, you can have a look at what pace you anticipate running. If you want to look at the pace you're looking to run the marathon in, run it for part of your long run, look at your heart rate, if you monitor heart rate, and see if you're in that zone and see if it's tolerable and manageable. If it's not, then you've got to reconsider whether that pace is realistic for you to be able to run that marathon in. Hopefully that's ish. That's your question. Okay, no problem.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else got any other questions?
I was just going to add from a London Marathon Day perspective as well. Obviously, it's a little bit different than doing your solo training runs. There are a lot more people around you, and there are a lot more support around you as well. I will bang the drum about how great the Anthony Nolan cheer points are. I know Kate is nodding because she has done one for us before, but we have 4 cheer points around the course, so we'll be there to keep you motivated when the times may get a little bit tough as well. But I think a lot of people do say they tend to run a little bit faster than they were maybe expecting because of all of the support. It's a little bit easier to keep yourself motivated when there's other people around you doing it versus when you're trying to slog along on your long runs by yourself, particularly if you are in the UK or certain other parts of the world where the weather isn't always nice or might be a little bit turbulent at times. So, we're here for you on the day, we're here in the run-up, but we're here on the day itself as well. So hopefully that will give you that boost that you need to get you around those harder miles as well.
Definitely. The cheer points are the crowds itself are amazing. Try not to high five too many people. It can chew into your energy a little bit. Or you've got loads of people giving you high five. Oh, actually, there's one thing as well to be wary of. I didn't cover it too much because it's a bit of a sensitive area, but chafing, rubbing does happen. There are creams you can get before training. But one word of warning I'll give you about, it's on the subject of cheering. So you've got a lot of people with their hands holding out and want to give you high five, and it's great to give high fives. If you've got a St. John ambulance person with a hand out, they are not, I'll give you a word of warning, they're not necessarily wanting to give you a high five. They're brilliant. Sometimes they'll hold out big hands of Vaseline or sort of that you can put down inside to sort of help to lubricate those chafing areas. I've high-fived one of them before now, and Vaseline was splattered absolutely everywhere. So there's just your word of warning. It's not always the case, so just be careful. And look, high-fiving is great. There are loads of kids. It's wonderful to high-five the kids, but it does get exhausting eventually. Yeah, definitely be selective who you high-five. But you'll find totally, as Becky just said, that the crowds are sensational, and they really do give you a massive lift. It's humbling and it's spine tingling. Oh, you'll love it. You'll absolutely love it, and you have a great time. And one thing I must mention, I'm sure Becky probably mentioned this beforehand. For those of you who aren't familiar, you've got to go to the running show and you've got to go and pick up your number. You can get people to go and pick it up, but actually it's a little bit awkward. Generally, I would advise go to the running show. It's a really good thing to go and get your number. I think, Anthony, you've got to stand there, Becky?
We do, yeah. I was going to mention that just before we finished, and you'll be getting some more info, everybody on the call and who hasn't been able to join us. But yeah, we're there on the day, well, all day, every day for the whole week. So Expo is open, or running show as it's called now, is open from Wednesday through to Saturday, and you need to come and collect your running number and your kit bag and all of that fun stuff. And as Graeme mentioned, there's lots of other stands there. It's really cool. If you're looking for a new pair of trainers to try after the marathon, or you want to take note of any of the discounts and stuff, then that's really great. But we'll be there as well with some Anthony Nolan goodies and to wish you luck in person as well. So do pop along, have a photo with our stand. It's a really great way to boost that fundraising as you get into the final week, and we'll be able to let you know as well, answer any of your last minute questions that you might have about the day, where we're going to be at our cheer points, and also all about our post-race party. And you'll also be getting an email from me with an RSVP to that soon. So I'll be sending you some more info. And Graeme will love this because we serve pasta at our post-race. So we're going to help you refuel. We also have massage therapists. So we'll be kitting you out at the end. You can have a nice relax and refuel those carbs. So hopefully you'll have had a lovely experience meeting some of the team at the running show. It's also a really nice way to meet some of your team Anthony Nolan runners. Also, if you're not part of the Strava group or part of the WhatsApp group that Kate started, I really recommend it. It's a great way to get to know some of your fellow runners ahead of the day, in a little bit of a different way than just being part of Team Anthony Nolan as well. So we've got whole host of different people, as we've noticed just from this small amount of people on the call. Lots of new starters to running, lots of more seasoned marathon runners. So it's really great way to get some sort of peer-to-peer advice as well as listening to us lot. So yeah, definitely recommend those bits. But yeah, lots of fun things to look forward to. The running show is a really nice one to wander around. It really gets you started, I think. Graeme, I know that you've been quite a number of times. It's so nice to go and just wander around and see and be part of this running experience that is like nothing else, really.
Definitely. And actually, and this sounds like a weird thing to sort of really love about the running show. Now that they put the Elizabeth line in, oh my word, it's lightning quick. It used to be a schlep to get over there. You had to go to, I come from Paddington, all they have to go to Barnes, get onto the TfL, and there's about 2 or 3 stops, and it's a real schlep. Now it's like 15 minutes from London Paddington. It's brilliant, really direct to get there now. Super, super easy. And actually, the one point that I've got to stress is just please try and go on any other day other than Saturday. If you have to go Saturday, of course, go, but go in the morning. The reason being is that they are brutal with their cutoff time. If you turn up 1 minute past the cutoff, which I think's 5 o'clock, don't quote me on that. It's usually it's 5 o'clock. I hate to be the wrong time. If you turn up 1 minute past 5 and think, oh, it's all right, they won't give you your number and you're not running the marathon. They are brutal. And they won't take the excuse of, oh, the train was late or whatever the excuse. They don't care. They have to have some sort of cutoff. And people every year miss out by a minute. It's brutal, and no amount of begging is going to give you your race number. So you've got to go. So don't leave anything to chance. Go there on Saturday morning if you need to go Saturday. And actually it's rammed. So any other day, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday is good. A bit more relaxed, bit less hustle and bustle, and you can have that peace of mind that you'll get your number. But please don't make that mistake that some runners make and think that you'll turn up late and get your number because you won't. And it'd be such a shame. All those hours, control the controllables. All those hours you put in, got to make sure you get that number.
If any of you guys feel like that might not be possible for you, or you want to find out a little bit more, please do just let us know. We'll be sending more information out as it gets a little bit closer, and you'll also start getting more and more information from the London Marathon organisers themselves as well with all of this information, because you'll be getting your start wave from them and all of those things. So they'll tell you all about the running show, but the events team are here to kind of support with any of those bits. And Jennifer, I'll send the Strava group in the chat now, and I'll also send it as a reminder with this recording as well, so that you guys can join. But yeah, if you have any other specific questions about the logistics of getting to the show or sort of on the day itself, we've got a few minutes left now for any final questions. If not, I'll let you get on with your evenings or your days if you're in the US. I know a couple of you are. But yeah, thank you so much to Graeme.
Well, thank you for inviting me to do the webinar. Guys, thanks ever so much for joining and for being part of the day. I hope you enjoyed the evening. I hope you enjoyed the Cahoots. And I hope you enjoyed the golf ball trick as well. Something you can take away with you and go and wear your friends.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to go and find something now. I'm so intrigued. So
it's great. It's definitely a good one to do. But yeah, and yeah, check out the app as well, guys. Go see that. It's free for you. Please go and fill your boots and say so. If you subscribe to those notifications, you'll get weekly countdown emails, and it'll help you every single week with what you should sort of thing you should be doing, with some ideas on core training, on foam rolling, on glutes, or anything, etc., and nutrition as well. So hopefully that'll be helpful for you. But yeah, other than that, guys, I guess unless Becky or Nicole want to say anything else, I guess we can leave you to the rest of your evening. Thanks ever so much to everybody for joining. It's lovely to see so many faces and to see everyone sort of seen it through to the end. Always really good to see so many people. So thanks so much for coming, and look after yourselves.
Yeah.
Enjoy.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Cheers, guys.
Thank you.
Good
It's
night.
really interesting.
Good.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye bye.
Thanks, guys. Good night.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Take care, guys.